I was talking. I look ready. I call this November 6th, 2025 meeting to order. Thank you for joining us tonight. We have a few items on the agenda. The last one on the agenda, that's Z-25-10/V-25-22. Is it Leviton? Leviton has been deferred by staff, so it's not going to be heard today. The other items are going to be in the same order, and if they are passed on to council, they will be heard on the November 17th, 2025 meeting at 6:30 p.m. Before we start considering the items on the agenda, I'd like to ask the board for about the minutes for the last meeting. I was not there at that meeting. What is the wish of the board?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the most recent meeting of the Planning Commission.
I'll second.
Meeting has been made, a motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. I'm voting as recorded because I was not here. Do you want to read the procedures for the meeting?
Yes, Chairman, thank you. An individual requesting to be heard on a matter related to the purpose of the hearing must be recognized by the chair before addressing the commission. Upon rising to speak, the speaker must identify himself and furnish a home or business address before proceeding with any comments or remarks. The commission will allow the components a total of 10 minutes to speak in support of an application. Opponents will be allowed 10 minutes to speak in opposition. Comments are accepted first from the applicant, followed by persons speaking in favor, and then from those in opposition. Upon conclusion of any opposing comments or presentations, the chair will allow the applicant to offer rebuttal if at any time is remaining in the original allotted 10 minutes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
The first item on the agenda is Z-25-14/V-25-31 10235 Waters Road, and Ms. Kathy Cook will present.
Thank you, Chairman. Good evening, Commissioners. The first item on your agenda is shown to you on the map. It's 10235 Waters Road. And the applicant, Barry Dunlap, is requesting a rezoning and variance in order to subdivide a 0.84 acre property into two for-sale single-family detached lots. A rezoning is requested from CUP to R15, and a variance is requested to reduce the front setbacks. Property is located at 10235 Waters Road, near the northeast corner of Waters Road and Jones Bridge Road. The density proposed is only 2.38 dwelling units per acre, and I'll show you the site plan that they're requesting. Yeah, good. The property right now is undeveloped, but at one time there was a single-family home on the property that was removed. And in conjunction with the adjacent subdivision, which is Waters Cove, the property was rezoned in Fulton County and later annexed into the city of Alpharetta. And a lot of our annexations we gave a CUP zoning because the Fulton County conversion, when we did the annexation, didn't really match up completely with our zoning district. So a lot of the annexed properties have the CUP. Waters Cove is located to the north of the property and to the east. Johns Creek is to the south, and Wrights Mill Commons is located to the west here. The comprehensive land use plan designation of the property is medium density residential, which supports the applicant's request. The Unified Development Code does require a 65 front building setback along Waters Road within the R15 district. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce that to 50 feet. And the applicant states that the shape of the property is the reason that there's a hardship. They're also trying to save some of these trees at the back. So they're also requesting are just, as part of their application, they'll have a 35-foot rear setback instead of the 25 in order to save some of those trees. And when staff looked at the application, we did notice that there are a lot of tree saves along the back, but there is a significant tree in the front of Lot 1. So we did ask for an alternative plan from the applicant, and I'll show you what that looks like. Although both Lots 1 and 2 had significant trees along the front, even with a pushed 65-foot setback along Lot 2, it didn't save any of the significant trees. It does save a significant tree along Lot 1. So part of our recommendation, when we get to the recommendation, is different from what the applicant is requesting, that both lots have a 50-foot front setback. Staff is recommending that one of those lots, Lot 1, maintain the 65 in order to keep the water oak along the front. They did also provide an example of the rendering, which is shown as Exhibit A and also included in your packet. And we held the community zoning information meeting on October 8th. There was one public comment indicating that trees are breaking a fence, and also that commenter said they're interested in purchasing one of the lots. So that's the extent of the comments that we had. Staff reviewed the applicant's proposal against the established review criteria for rezoning and variance, and the proposal is supported by the future land use designation of the property, which is medium-density residential. And if approved, it is recommended that additional trees be saved in the front yard of Lot 1, which is reflected in the alternate plan that you see on the overhead. Staff is recommending approval of the application, subject to 9 conditions. One, with the rezoning to R15, establishes that it's tied to the site plan dated 9/23/25. 2, home elevation style, exterior materials and details shall be similar to the submitted renderings. 3, homes shall be side loaded, and each lot shall be permitted a curb cut on Waters Road. 4 is the building setbacks. 5, developer shall improve Waters Road streetscape with minimum 6-foot planter, planted with street trees, a minimum 6-foot sidewalk as approved by staff. And 6, minimum 10-foot decorative landscape strip shall be provided along Waters Road. 7, developer shall plant a mix of evergreen and deciduous trees in the perimeter 5-foot landscape strips. 8, lists the trees to be saved. And 9, unfinished wood fences and decks shall not be visible from Waters Road. And that concludes staff presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Thank you. That's a good 4 minutes, Kathy. Very good. I have a couple of questions. One is, has this application come before us before?
No,
This is the first time.
This is the first
So
time.
there was one along this Waterslow Road.
Right, that
Further
was,
down.
so this is the one that's adjacent to the Johns Creek city limits. The one that you're talking about was further
down.
north.
Okay.
Yeah.
The second question is, when we grant waivers, the variance, do we consider the effect, if any, that would have on potential widening of a major road in the future?
We do, and so part of our consideration is to look at other setbacks along the roadway and make sure that they're similar to what the applicant is requesting. And we did find several homes that were even closer than the 50-foot setback, and that's because it's the rear of those homes, because a rear setback is a lot less than the front setback. So we believe that even if it granted at 50 feet, it would be very similar to surrounding setbacks.
And that's one of the things I looked at earlier when I was reviewing it. Because if there are other houses, then this is not going to make a difference from a potential widening of the road is concerned. But just in general, if the road is widened, that becomes even shorter distance. and we need to be careful in the future when we grant these variances. And the last question is, with the alternate plan, does it matter if the houses are offset from an appearance perspective from the street? I think it's a minor point, but if they are on the same distance, seems like it look nicer. The houses look wonderful. Is there a fence between them? I saw a fence in the picture.
I don't know if they're going to install the fence. They do show a fence in the picture, but the applicant would have to address that.
Okay.
And to staff, it's a difference of 15 feet in order to save that. I think the water oak is 28-inch water oak, so that's a significant tree along the front. So I think that will offset the 15 feet that you see between lot 1 and 2 on the homes.
Okay, that's it for me.
Kathy, I do have one quick question. On the driveways, so, it's not right on the intersection with Jones Bridge, but it's pretty close. And there's the start of a median for that turn lane right there. Is there any concern with a left turn, making a left turn out of there? It was pretty busy when I went by it.
I don't know if, George, if you have a comment on that, if you have a concern.
I know other driveways on that street will allow lefts out, but
Right.
because of this proximity to the intersection, I was just,
Right, and it's 2 trips since it's
yeah.
two homes. So I think because it's set back far enough, I don't see an issue.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I had one quick one. With regard to the sidewalk that's being conditioned, is there previously existing sidewalk?
I don't know if that has sidewalk, and the applicant may know, but I don't know if
There's
it
a
has
sidewalk on the other side of the road.
on the other side, so there's not
Okay.
one on this one. Because usually it comes with new development.
Right. So this would be discontinuous sidewalk. It would start and end with these two properties?
And we would match any connect to any sidewalk that already exists, if it exists in this area.
Okay.
So then it would tie into that. If it doesn't, we would still want them to install that because there could be a future addition.
Thank you.
If there are no further questions, we ask the applicant to come forward and make a presentation. Please state your name and address for the record. They probably have it already.
Good evening. My name is Barry Dunlop. I'm with Paradigm.
The volume?
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay. Now we can
Good
hear
evening.
you.
My name is Barry Dunlop. I'm with Paradigm Engineering. Our office is at 903 Bombay Lane in Roswell, 30076. And Kathy, can I have the site plan, the 2 site plans? I'd like to talk about those when it comes to the setbacks, both the alternate and the. Thank you. That's the alternate, yes. And there we go. Okay. Thank you very much. I do want to address the setback issue and the variance that we've requested for both of the lots. Let's see if I can y'all see that? Is that all right?
Yes, we can.
And then I'm going to do this, so we can kind of see both of them at the same time. Okay. All right, can y'all see both of those?
Perfect.
All right, very good. Okay, so the one here on the right, that was my desired site plan with a setback reduction of 65 feet to 50 feet for the front setback. And in doing so, we were also increasing the rear setback from 25 to 35 feet. And the intention was, like Kathy mentioned, was to save these trees. In fact, is this microphone on? Can I just do it again?
Should
Okay.
be.
Great. This might be a little bit easier to talk about. The intention was to save this grouping of trees right here and the grouping of trees we had back here, because I felt like I wanted to protect a screening buffer to the existing homes in the neighboring development. And in doing so, you can see that this little red line right there, that's the proposed setback. The black line right there was the existing setback. And Kathy is correct. There is a large tree right about that area. It's right on the existing setback. If you look at the alternate here, the alternate being a 15-foot difference between the two, the requested setback and the existing setback, you can see that I've pushed the home even further back from the existing setback, almost an additional 20 feet, and crammed that home all the way back to what we consider the requested setback in the rear. And I had to push that home back an additional 20 feet to try to save that tree. If this home is built on the existing setback, the tree could not survive. It would have to come out, even if it was built up to the existing setback. So I kind of see the tree as a loss either way. We build the home on the existing setback, the tree is going to have to be removed. So my desire was to have the front setback reduced, to pull the home up closer to the front setback so that I know for sure I can save the buffer trees in the rear. There's some really light topo lines there. I don't know if you can see those. But the lot does start to raise up in elevation as you go from the front of the lot to the back of the lot. And once again, by pulling the home further to the front, I don't have to deal with those elevation differences that I would have to grade back into the property in order to give myself some semblance of a flat backyard space. And once again, that would definitely significantly impact those existing trees along the back.
What's the contour interval in the back?
I'm sorry, say it again?
The contour intervals at the back.
The contour intervals?
Yeah.
Or how much of a difference in grade
In the
does that
back,
change?
the back of that first building, lot 1.
Oh my goodness! I tell you what's hard for me to read, but I think these are 1 foot topos.
1 foot.
So from here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 8 feet of elevation difference just in that little space right there.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the council?
No, I just injected that question during your presentation.
Okay, great.
So I don't forget.
So there is no sidewalk on the frontage right now, and our proposal is to add sidewalk along the front. Like Kathy said, it can be added to as future development happens to the north and south of this property. And we did. The concept that we had shown for the architectural elements for the home, that was a conceptual design. It wasn't the actual design of the home. That's why you saw an image of a fence in the background. That was just something that we had from a previous project, that it was what the owner wanted to do with the property. So it wasn't the exact layout of this particular site plan. It was the conceptual, the idea that would show the architectural style and finishes.
All right. Thank you. Are you finished with your presentation?
Any other questions?
Any questions?
Yes, I just have one, since it was noted on the citizen's comment about the fencing. So you don't indicate that you're going to be putting a fence. The fence that they were talking about must be on the rear of the property?
Yes. The neighbor that came to the CZI meeting lived right here at this property. Mm-hmm. And apparently he has a fence up that's along his property right now. And apparently some of the trees along this property line have had some limbs or large limbs that have fallen down on his fence. And he just wanted to make sure that there was some coordination between the property owner and him to clean up those limbs that have fallen.
Okay.
And I thought it was interesting. At the same time, he said he's interested in purchasing that property. So we're hopefully that we can make that connection.
I had a quick question for you. In the alternate view for Lot 1, you had mentioned that that would push that structure hard against the buffer plantings. Does it presuppose that, that those plantings would be injured in any way or could not be retained if you did that?
Yeah, I'll end up having to remove a good bit of these plantings back here to make a flatter backyard for the use of that property. So I will end up removing those trees right up to a landscape strip, a minimal landscape strip.
Okay, with the option then of replanting to provide a buffer?
Up to that landscape strip, which I think is only like 5 feet. So it would be pretty minimum. It'd be a pretty minimal replanting. We'll want to have enough space back here for a backyard, a flat backyard for the home. And right now, with this home being pushed back like it is, you can see there's a significant difference between what the backyard would be here to what the backyard would be there.
Okay, and in the proposed view that you would rather do, there's enough flat space before the topography starts to rise?
Yes, because the topography really rises right in this area back here, right in that area back there.
You can see the gap
Yes,
between the
you can-
contours more flatter.
see lines.
I have a related question with respect to the large tree in front that we are trying to save.
Yes, that's it right there.
If you offset it the way it's showing on the alternate, are we outside the critical root zone of that large tree? Has that been confirmed?
On the alternate, I'm encroaching the critical root zone by probably 10 to 15%.
So you're still within the,
Enough to where we could save it. 20% is typically the maximum that you want to impact a root zone to save a tree. I would be around that 15 to 18% range of critical root zone impact on this alternate plan.
and this is probably for Ms. Cook, whether the city arborist has made a comment regarding whether that would affect the health of that tree. If that is not going to solve that problem or save the tree for an extended period of time. Has that been looked at?
It has, and the arborist did recommend saving that tree, maximum 20% encroachment.
So that would still maintain the health of the tree without
Yes.
jeopardizing potential
Yes.
death or...
Our code still considers it a save if it's under 20%, 20 or under of maximum
Okay.
impact.
And, you know, I'm not someone who wants to just take down trees for the sake of taking down trees. I'm trying to make this a home that has a backyard to it, that's a usable backyard, trying to keep the homes themselves pulled in together up to the street and keeping a similar setback for both those homes. I just think that it would be best to be able to remove that tree and then plant back any additional trees in places in the lot that would make sense.
Follow-up question. For Lot 2, how much usable backyard is shown there? Before the
Yeah, so Lot 2, once again, we did ask for a setback variance on Lot 2, and this structure right here shows, on both the alternate and the desired plan, shows our structure up to that setback variance of 50 feet. And the topo of the backyard really works itself into the lots in this area right here. And so we feel like we can get a good maybe 10 to 15 feet of flat area behind that lot, behind that proposed home in lot number 2. And once again, that's why I requested a setback variance to be able to move that home up closer. if I were to fill the entire lot, my setback would be back here only 25 feet off the property line. It would, and if I were to do a backyard on that particular home, with the home being 25 feet off the property line, it's going to encroach, it's going to take down a significant amount of that existing buffer vegetation. Or let's not call it a buffer, because it's not really designed as a buffer. It is we do have a landscape back there. There's not a required buffer, but because this is residential to residential. I'm just trying to create an envelope for the development of those homes that will give me the opportunity to keep the existing vegetation that's out there.
Understood. Any other questions?
Do you have a price range of what you're thinking about listing these for?
Oh my gosh, I am the civil engineer and not the home builder, but in my discussions with the property owner who's going to build these homes, we're thinking somewhere in the 1.3 to 1.5 million range. So pretty nice homes. They're not going to be shabby by any means. So I think that they'll be very complimentary of the homes in Alpharetta.
Any other questions?
Excuse me, when we, you said that these layouts are just representative of a house, but not exactly what you're going to build here. Is that true?
That's right. We have not done a full architectural footprint for
My
these.
point would be, if we
these homes.
reconfigured on lot 1 with the 65 setback, would you be able to achieve the same housing and just reconfigure the house itself?
Once again, from lot 1's perspective, this right here that right there is the existing setback.
Right.
And I've pushed my home back 25 feet from the existing setback in order to save that tree.
Right.
Okay, so in theory, so if I were to build my home up on the existing setback, that tree would be eliminated. There's no way I could keep that tree if I build on the existing setback. Now, to answer your question, can this home be configured in such a way or a different way?
Right.
I'm going to kind of leave that up to an architect. We talked about a square footage of home, and I went through some existing product that we've worked with to try to find something that met the square footage of homes. I've even made sure I had something that sort of worked with the triangular shape of this lot 2. As you can see that the home, sort of juts out, and also the desire to make a courtyard or a side entry type garage. Those type things tend to chew up lots very quickly, as opposed to having a driveway right at the front of your home and driving right into the driveway, driving right into a garage. The side entry type of a home does tend to eat a lot of lot space. So I would probably say in the end, this is going to look very similar to what will be submitted for a building permit when the final architectural happens. But it's going to change. There'll be some jut outs here and there, and there'll be some just adjustments to the square footage. But from what could fit a square footage that could fit on this lot and still maintain that price point, this is probably going to be a 3,500 to 4,000 square foot home. So I think that we're going to be pretty close to this, but you are, in my original statement, this is not the final architecture, and that was not really a requirement of this rezoning. We just talked about trying to find something that we could look at and see how would we actually build, and what trees could be saved, and how would we work through the design for these lots. Why is it necessary for a setback variance? All of which were answered with this concept. All right.
And by the way, that is Kathy's plan that you just marked on, so you need to give her a clean one,
Yeah, I'm so sorry.
not yours.
Yeah, we've been passing around PDFs, Michael Woodman and I, for quite some time. But I'll tell you which one this is.
You have to
so
print
can-
another one. If there are no, there's another question.
Mr. Chairman, I do have one follow-on, actually, on Commissioner Mitchell. Looks like if you flip this thing over, you could move it forward, just and then move the driveway. I know you just said I'm not an architect, and neither am I, but if you flip it over, you could move the driveway to the other side, and then you could move it forward and have enough room
So
to save the tree.
The problem with that is the driveway. So my tree is right. My tree is like right here in this area. Okay. If I were to move the driveway would go right through the tree. I've got the driveway on that southern side of the lot I mean, if you think about the alternate is the one we're trying to save the tree, right? There's the tree, the critical root zone of the tree. If my driveway were flipped to the northern side of the lot, the driveway would go right through the tree. Okay, anything else? Any
All
other
right.
questions?
We're going to open this for public comments. Then you have time for rebuttal. Anyone in favor of this application, please come forward. Seeing none, anyone in opposition? I see no one in favor, no one in opposition, so I close public comments. Do you have anything else to add before I turn this over to the board?
No, not at this time. I do appreciate the time for me to explain the development and the nature of the request for the variances and why we were, the intent of the development.
You did a very good job doing that.
Okay, thank you.
So we appreciate it. I'm going to turn this over to the board for discussion and or emotion.
Kathy, I do have one quick follow-up question, Ms. Cook. So today we did get, this morning we did get the red lines that were submitted from staff, and just wanted to confirm the position of staff on those.
We're not in agreement with the applicant's request.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Only if the board asks a question.
As far as open discussion?
Yes,
we're
if
comfortable
you
with
like
that?
to ask questions to the applicant or staff, feel free to do so.
Okay, but right now, following on Commissioner Perkins' comment, I would agree that it would appear there could be the ability to work with the footprint of Lot 1 in the alternate plan, whereby the driveway doesn't encroach on the tree zone any more than the original proposal would come close to doing. In other words, you could take it to the north and bring it under the tree and around without, I believe, impairing the tree. In other words, I think that design has some options that would still produce a very desirable product and save a very significant tree. We are a tree city.
What about having the driveways right next to each other? Would that be a concern?
They exist.
So the answer is no. Okay.
I'll make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve Z-25-14/V-25-31 BRK Properties 10235 Waters Roads and subject to the following conditions as noted by staff.
Second.
A motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. Council will consider it on November the 17th. They make the final decision. Come make your case before them, and they will make the final decision. Thank you so much. The second item on the agenda is Z-25-12, Hardy, 302 North Main Street. You're doing all the lifting, Kathy. Is Michael off this week?
Yes, but he usually does all the lifting, so I don't know.
All right. That's not my phone.
The next application, the area is shown to you on the screen, and the applicant is requesting a rezoning to allow a existing two-story building to be used for a residential dwelling unit over office or certain commercial uses that would require a conditional use on 0.357 acres in the downtown. A rezoning is requested from O&I to the DTLW. Property is located at 302 North Main Street on the west side of North Main and north of Mayfield Road. And this one may look familiar to you because this one was previously allowed for conditional use. It was for the bakery. So the applicant is coming back requesting the rezoning, and the reason they need the rezoning is because they want to put a residential unit on top, and so it's an existing duplex. Well, here's a blow-up. It was developed in 1955 with a two-story, 2,960 square foot duplex. The building was developed at the rear of the property, and it's set back, pretty far from the road. It's 175 feet from North Main Street. Surrounding properties are zoned DTLW to the north, O&I to the east and south, and R15 to the west. And here's the site plan. The site plan, again, depicts the reuse of the building. Applicant is proposing utilizing the existing 2,000 square foot parking lot, which has a capacity of up to 9 parking spaces. The proposed use of the building would require between 5 to 7 parking spaces. That depends on if it's an office or commercial use on the first floor. The existing parking lot provides sufficient area to accommodate the parking needs of the applicant's proposed uses. The downtown code requires a minimum 10% amenity space. They meet that. 1,555 square feet for the proposed site. And the front yard will be landscaped to comply with the minimum open space requirement. Applicant doesn't propose to remove any trees, and the applicant does plan to remodel the structure, and they already have a plan that was approved by DRB, so they plan to use that. It's a mercantile style, and there is a recommendation, though, if this is approved, staff is recommending that panels be added on the front. And those are just the solid panels. They're like knee panels that you would usually typically find on a storefront within a downtown. Traffic is minimal. It's only 3 to 4 a.m. peak hour trips, same for the p.m. We reviewed the applicant's proposal against the review criteria for a rezoning. The proposal is consistent with the future land use designation of the property and surrounding area, which is mixed-use live-work. In addition, the zoning proposal is compatible with surrounding and nearby properties, which are similar, developed with a mix of office, residential, and commercial uses. And as part of the citizen participation plan, they did reach out to property owners within 500 feet. And the report states that the only comments they received were at the community zoning information meeting. We had a few comments, but with no objections. People signed in and they just basically wrote no objection, but we didn't see any comments. We are recommending approval of Z2512, Hurdy, 302 North Main Street, subject to 8 conditions. 1, approximately .357 acres shall be rezoned to DTLW as depicted. 2, commercial uses subject to conditional use approval shall be limited to art gallery, bakery, banking, mortgage company, barber, beauty shop, bookstore, dance studio, fitness studio, florist, print shop, restaurant, retail establishment with no mixed sales, and shopper studio, craftsman, artist. So if they do want to have a commercial use, they'll have to come back for that conditional use so you can see, you assign it to that applicant. And then 3, to comply with the downtown architectural standards, the applicant shall add panels to the ground floor, storefront glass, replace modern railings, and add mullions to windows as approved by staff. 4, deals with the parking lot. 5, landscape strip. 6, if the parking lot is expanded, minimum 5-foot landscape strips along the north and south property line shall be planted with a mix of evergreen and hardwood trees and shrubs as approved by DRB. And parking lot shall be screened along North Main Street with double row of shrubs. 7, developer shall plant creeping phlox at the top of the GDOT wall along the property frontage with final approval by DRB, trying to make those walls a little more attractive and set a theme along Main Street. 8, if a dumpster is utilized, dumpsters shall be contained within a masonry enclosure that is compatible with the primary building and with opaque decorative metal gate with final approval by DRB. And that concludes staff presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer those.
Very good again, Kathy. I have a quick question. If you can go to the first drawing you showed with the parking lot, I'm counting 16 parking spaces. The application says 9. Is this shared with the other building?
They have the ability to expand that parking lot, but they're planning on using the existing space. I should put this here. But there is the ability to expand the parking lot to be greater.
What I was saying is the drawing shows 16 of them.
Right, so they could go
So
to...
they can add another.
That's a different site plan. So that is a site plan if they chose to expand.
Understood. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's all.
And I have a quick question. So we talk about the landscaping along North Main. There's no required landscaping. When I drove by this, the definition of this lot was not clear to me, right? There's no delineation on the site plan on the sides. So there's no landscape requirement on either side. So it's just the parking lot and the existing grass, and that's it.
Right. Now, if they
Okay.
expand the parking lot, they're going to have to put in a 5-foot landscape strip on each side. But right now, that's where the parking area is, they have greater than 5 feet.
Right.
So we're not putting that requirement in
Okay.
unless there's an expansion. They still have the 10-foot landscape strip along the front.
Front, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Kathy, is it the applicant's decision to utilize a dumpster? They make their own decision on that?
Well, if one of the uses requires that they have a dumpster, they would be required to make sure that that is enclosed. I mean, you
Okay,
could
and
have an
then-
office and have just typical trash inside and not really have to have a large dumpster, but there's some uses that they could come forward for commercial and ask for a conditional use, and you would have to have a dumpster.
So where would that dumpster go?
They would have to locate that as part of their parking lot expansion. So it'd have to be in the front, on the side, to the side, on the front. Because
And
there's
that
no
would be
room on the
okay
back.
with us? I mean, that's not going to be very attractive to have a,
Well, that's why we require that it basically, the architectural standard for the dumpster, it has to look as good as the building.
okay. And then if the dumpster is not required, then their trash cans will be behind the building?
Yes, because it's almost like it would be residential in nature. If it's an office use, you're probably not going to use the dumpster. If you have office and you have the residential use on the top floor, it's more of a residential type trash service.
Okay.
But if it goes to the dumpster, they'll have to have the same brick enclosure, and then shrubs will be in front of that, and it'll be something that's not as obvious that it's a dumpster.
Okay.
And DRB will have to approve that too, so trust their work.
Kathy, I had a quick question about the rear elevations, which I assume is going to be visible from the homes behind it. Is there any stipulations about lighting for those rear entrances?
They would still have to meet the spillover requirement that you can have no spillover of light onto a residential property from a commercial property.
Okay.
So
So that's actually built into code?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Kathy, could you clear up about if a restaurant was going to go into the bottom, is that being okayed here, or does it have to go back through, say, city council, if they want to put a restaurant in the bottom?
If they want to put a restaurant now, they would have to go through a conditional use so we could see the restaurant. If you remember, previously it was the bakery, and so it was a much lower traffic demand than another type of restaurant that could go in there, so it would be a conditional use. And being so close to the residential at the back, they would want to be able to probably see and speak on the type of restaurant that came into theirs, because some of them would have a higher demand.
Any other questions? There are no further questions at this time. I would like to ask the applicant to come forward and make a presentation. And try to do as good as Kathy. I just said try. I didn't say you have
Hello,
to.
everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Alexis Severit. I live at 285 Pebble Trail, Alpharetta 30009, so very close to the property. I can walk actually to that place. This is my second time here. As Kathy explained, we already have a design review board approved. When we had the application for the bakery, at that point, the idea was to have the bakery in the bottom and offices on top. Now they are just basically modifying the use of the top to be residential. The rest remains the same, except for the parking lot. We are using 7 existing spaces. And if anything changes, well, we already know the process. Again, regarding the bottom story or the first story of the building, if we decide to go to a restaurant or rent for a restaurant, that would be another application for rezoning or conditional use, completely separate with the sign application and everything. So as far as the scope of this application, it's basically just changing the top floor for a residential use.
She actually did better than Kathy. Thank you so much. Any questions for
Thank
the
you.
applicant?
Any questions?
I have a real quick one. For the residential component, were you considering that for sale or for rent?
Actually, that's probably going to be for themselves to live in.
Oh,
the owners.
proprietor, okay.
Yeah, initially, that's the plan.
Okay, good, thank you.
Well, my comment is we're disappointed that it's not going to be a bakery.
Well, you never know. She opened a place somewhere in Forsyth County, but she's still in love with that location. It's just a matter of timing. So the timeline didn't work out for her. I don't know if you remember. She was a very nice lady, Marian, and maybe, you never know. We go back in the future.
Well, good. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns?
I see no other questions at this time. I'm going to ask open for public comments.
Okay.
And you have time if you have to rebut anything.
Thank you.
I open this for public comments. Anyone in favor, please come forward. Seeing none, anyone in opposition? I see no one in favor, no one in opposition. Do you have anything else to add? Obviously not. I turn this over to the board now for discussion and our motion.
I'll make a motion to approve Z-25-12 Hurdy/302 North Main Street, subject to the conditions of staff.
Second.
A motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussions? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. Goes before council on November 17th. at 6:30, 2025. All right. The next item on the agenda is CU-25-16 Gulf NV Windward Master Plan Pond 4. Ms. Cook again.
Yes. The next application before you, the applicant is requesting a conditional use to allow recreation facilities indoor in a 3,278 square foot suite in an existing shopping center for Golf Envy. According to the application, Golf Envy is a 24/7 indoor golf simulator facility. The property is located at 3070 Windward Plaza, Suites Q and R near the northeast corner of Windward Plaza and Windward Parkway. So that's these suites shown on the top floor. Property is zoned CUP Community Unit Plan, subject to the Windward Master Plan, which is designated commercial. Property is developed with a strip center, the terraces at Windward, and 2 outbuildings, including the former CVS building, which was currently approved for the Activate Games. And surrounding properties are zoned CUP, subject to the Windward Master Plan also. Golf Envy is a 24/7 indoor golf club business that offers its members the use of state-of-the-art golf simulator technology that fits within their schedule. The model allows members to practice golf before early morning meetings, after late work hours, or during off-peak times when traditional facilities would be closed. And the applicant is estimating that overnight users would represent about 5 to 10% of total users. And regular staffed hours of operation are Monday to Friday, 8 to 6 p.m., and weekends will be variable based on demand. The business will utilize an access control system by way of smartphone application. Staff estimates that the proposed use will generate approximately 2 a.m. peak hour trips and 5 p.m. peak hour trips. The Community Zoning Information Meeting was held on October 8th. There was no public comments, and the applicant also submitted a citizen participation plan that states that no public comments were received. Staff reviewed the applicant's proposal against the review criteria for a conditional use, and the proposal would not adversely affect the existing use or usability of adjacent or nearby properties, which are primarily developed with a variety of commercial and office uses. We are recommending approval, subject to 4 conditions. 1, recreation facilities indoor shall be added as a conditional use at 3070 Windward Plaza. 2, conditional use approval shall be limited to Golf Envy. 3, recreation facilities indoor shall be limited to an indoor golf simulator facility. And then 4 has the hours of operation. And that concludes staff recommendation. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
I think you accepted the challenge, made it even shorter. We are doing very well. Any questions for Kathy?
Quick one, Kathy. I didn't see anything in the discussion about whether there would be any kind of on-site support in the event of a medical or physical emergency.
I think that would be a question for the applicant.
Okay, so that didn't...
I don't remember seeing that information in
Okay.
their application.
Okay, thank you.
What does overnight mean? The 5%, what time periods? Because it's the regular hours are 8 to 6 p.m. Is it any hours outside that is considered night? And what I probably want to know from the applicant is when the greatest volume is going to be.
Sure.
Before which and what times. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Just a quick question. This is a second applicant that's come into us in the last few months asking for 24/7 access to their facility. Is that something we're seeing more of, or is this a trend that we're going to need to discuss in the future because everybody wanted to go to 24/7 access and no real control after hours of what's going on there?
Right, and I think that's a good point. We may see more of that. For this one, something I did leave out, there's no food or beverage service, so we would have more concerns if there was a food service as part of that that's open different hours, where if you had some kind of spot inspection that you couldn't, gain access, or if something had an alcohol license. But yeah, that is something that we probably should look at and see that for 24/7 businesses, that there's a specific criteria that we could just put as a supplemental criteria within our code. That's something we'll look at.
Like entertainment would be a concern. When I was reading it, I thought, what about public safety? Does it put a burden on public safety officers to have to patrol the area if people are walking in it? This is a business area, not a residential area. That came to mind, but I also noticed there is surveillance, 24/7 surveillance,
Yeah.
and the clarification of the 5 to 10%. But we'd like to know from the applicant where else we have these types of activity and what they have experienced. So,
Yeah, and this one had 4 bays, so we weren't as concerned because of the size. But maybe the applicant can answer additional questions.
yeah, I'm preparing for the questions ahead of time, so.
I do think you need to maybe kind of think about, as the commissioner mentioned, because I do think that this could snowball into a bigger issue if we don't, have some criteria around it.
Sometimes a trend necessitates regulations that we are not anticipating yet, but let's hear a little more from the applicant, and we'll be a little bit more intelligent regarding how to handle this. If there are no further questions, I'll ask the applicant to come forward and make a presentation.
Thank you. My name is Kyle Romeo. This is the first time I've appeared before this committee, and
Welcome.
appreciate your time and consideration for this matter. Golf Envy is actually a franchise concept, and so with our indoor golf simulators, the idea is that these golf simulators are networked across various locations across the country, so members will be able to compete against one another, also track stats with regards to their golf game. We request the 24/7 conditional use permit because if anybody's golfed before, generally you need daylight and availability, and golf clubs, if you joined one, generally do have hours. But that doesn't necessarily map sometimes with people's busy schedules. And so the opportunity to provide them a practice facility that helps them to improve their game on their own terms. Obviously, there are professions like first responders and medical professionals where they may get off at odd hours and they would love to work on their game, whether relax, calm down, recreate, when it wouldn't necessarily traditionally be available to them. And so ours is a membership model. As it was stated before, they would have access to the facility via smartphone app, and they would be able to access it 24/7 based upon their own schedule.
How many members do you anticipate, and what is the cost for membership?
We anticipate being able to support between 30 to 35 members per bay. So at first, we'll be able to support between 120 and 140 members. But we will also have space to add an additional golf simulator once our membership numbers go up. So at capacity, based upon the square footage that we have, we could get up to as many as 175 members.
At a time?
Beg your pardon?
Or at the same time?
Not at the same time. So essentially, within the app itself, in addition to access, they have the ability to schedule time on the bay. So there'll be a scheduling app where they'll be able to reserve an hour or an hour and a half to be able to play. Also, as part of these simulators, they map to real golf courses like Pebble Beach or Pinehurst. So you can actually virtually play those courses on the simulator. So you would essentially not need 4 hours to play around. You would just need an hour, hour and a half. So golf, again, is a very time-consuming game, so you have the opportunity to enjoy the game, that fits within a busier schedule. That being said, you would need to schedule in advance, and that would reserve your bay for that period of time. So at a capacity of 4 bays, we could only have, 4, let's say, groups playing in the facility at one time. Consider a foursome, so 16 players at a time when the
That's
facility
the
is 4
maximum.
bays.
What's the cost for membership?
$350 per month.
$350. Okay, that factors into what type of clientele to expect in these places. Where else do you have these types of facilities?
So there are a few open in California. Others are at stages of development that I'm at with respect to build out, but those exist in Pennsylvania, Colorado, Arizona, and Florida. I'm the first in Georgia.
This is the first place in Georgia, in
Correct.
Alpharetta. Why here? Why Alpharetta?
The demographics are very good with regards to income potential, also how many people play golf in the area. So if you look at a lot of the search criteria locally, geographically, it's a high propensity for somebody to work on their game. And if you also look at financial data with regards to investment in the game itself, not just from a club perspective, but golf clubs, equipment, apparel, that does very well in this area too.
And why Windward Plaza? And not somewhere else in the city.
So obviously, Windward, Parkway, two-lane road in each direction. So accessibility to the location from both directions, easy to make the right where Activate Games is, and also too, there's a light to be able to turn left into the facility. Because if you know that area, it's like a little bit of a loop around Windward Parkway. And we're on the back side. So there's a little bit of privacy. So you've got good access to commercial, office space, as well as residential. So it's really centrally located. Why I like this location is that it was convenient to the demographic that we're looking to serve. We think that that's going to be a big driver for somebody to say, hey, listen, it's not that complicated for me to get there. I don't have to go through a neighborhood winding through different homes. It's right off of Windward Parkway. Very well-known area in and around from a locality perspective. So I figure word of mouth and accessibility are big factors in terms of driving membership.
Last question is with respect to safety and security. Any concerns you have had in other locations that would be concerned about? I'll actually add another question in terms of what time periods are you expecting the 5 to 10% during the night? Is it until 10 p.m., midnight, or what is the peak at night?
That's probably something that we're forecasting. We don't necessarily have a good sense as to whether or not it would be 10
In
o'clock.
other locations, maybe.
Beg your pardon?
The other locations could be a good gauge.
The other locations, there hasn't been a pattern with respect to, when people come in, if it's mostly at 10 p.m. or 2 p.m. It's generally scattered based upon, when that member might have time, to the point where if you think about 5 to 10%, would be during that time with a membership of 150. That's between 7 to 12, or 7 to 15 people that might come. And they wouldn't necessarily maybe be making that a regular occurrence. So being able to figure out a trend in terms of, hey, most of those are going to come in at 10 p.m. or 2 a.m., we just don't have enough data to understand, when that might be as far as a propensity is concerned.
And any concerns with other locations in terms of safety, security, disturbance, complaints?
We will have camera systems in the place, but obviously with the 24/7 facility, there's obviously a lock, but people will be able to access it. So it'll be important for those cameras, to be on. And I thought I believe it was Ms. Reynolds made a good point with regards to if somebody's there alone and there was a medical event, what alert could happen. But that's something that we would have to probably figure out.
That's all my questions at this time. Any questions not asked?
Quick question following on your questions about security. You mentioned that there would be cameras on site. Would they be interior and exterior, and would they be actively monitored as opposed to passive?
Yes, they would be actively monitored.
Okay, thank you.
And you said outside too, cameras?
Yeah, we would have it inside and then on the doorway too.
Yeah, I think, thank you very much for considering Alpharetta for this. I think you've done your research, and I think the community hopefully will be responsive to this. One of the questions I have is, what's preventing, in this nighttime thing, I have a 17-year-old boy, you know, grabbing dad's phone and accessing it and all the friends and a cooler of beer. I mean, you know, this self-serve access, it concerns me, and to hear that it's going to be monitored is important, because I think in our community, unfortunately, things do happen, and judgment, young and old, is not always great. So I think that's encouraging to hear.
So one thing also too, if you think about a member, there's also an app on the phone, not just with respect to accessing the facility, but your own personal golf stats. So if somebody comes in under your ID and plays, you are in a lot of ways devaluing your own membership, because now it is logging somebody else's golf game with regards to your improvement stats, whether it's distance on certain clubs, spin rates. So there is a natural deterrent, I think, to being in the facility, because it's going to track that if, you know, member John Doe came into the facility, it'll track member John Doe came in, even if it's not. So they will be able to see that. And you'll also probably be able to unearth like the differences in terms of how that person played, because we'll have access to the playing data as well.
Well, wouldn't you have to have the phone, first of all, to get into that? You have to have the phone to get in the access, right? So if a 17-year-old has he had to have his dad's phone to get
Correct.
into the place, correct?
Or moms.
Or moms.
Or moms.
Right, right.
Yes,
Okay, so that's
exactly.
highly unlikely.
So they, you know, to the
It's
point
not.
of Ms. Zurinskas, you know, if they're, you know, let's say frisky 17-year-olds, you know, and trying to get into after-hours places, I've heard of 17-year-olds stealing phones a little bit, maybe, so.
All day long in this city, all day long.
So,
True.
you know, there's, you know, some limitations in terms of how much behavior we can deter.
They're probably going to get in a lot of trouble with mom or dad, or both.
I'd be the least of their concerns.
Yes.
Just following up on that question, is there a policy for no alcohol in this facility, period?
No alcohol, yes. So, I mean, it's no alcohol. So we're not serving alcohol, and, you know,
If
we would
members
not
bring
encourage
it in?
alcohol. We could have a sign outside that says no alcohol permitted, but we are not serving food or drink. The idea really being, it's a gym for golfers, right? So much like somebody would access a anytime fitness center or 24 hours fitness center, we are giving access to golf equipment 24/7, and we are not serving any type of food or drink.
I understand you're not serving,
Yep.
but if they decided they wanted to bring some in while they were practicing or competing with somebody else or having a great time with three buddies, what is the policy? What is your policy of them bringing in alcohol, especially the after-hour stuff?
Yeah,
There's
so
nobody there to
if we
monitor.
were to find out that they were to do that, there would obviously be membership sanctions.
Okay.
But, you know, there would be membership sanctions. There is no alcohol allowed.
Okay,
And,
thank you.
and that can be considered as a condition. I was looking at the condition, see whether that can be added, and if it's appropriate, how that can be phrased. We can get help from Kathy on that. Anything that the board would consider adding to put a little more constraint on it, we can have that during the discussion period. Any other questions? No further questions at this time.
Thank you kindly.
I'm going to open this up for public comments. Anyone in favor, please come forward. Anyone in opposition? None and none. I close public comment, and I'll turn this over to the board for discussions.
Kathy, I do have
Before that, anything else you'd like to add?
I'm available for questions if you think of
Okay.
any after.
Thank you. Back to the board.
Kathy, I do have a quick question for you. So originally when I read this application, I interpreted it as a 24-hour gym. So does this fall under gym? I mean, it is. It's quote unquote exercise in a game format. I mean, that's,
We put it in the category of recreation facilities indoor.
yeah, okay,
So very, very similar.
yeah, okay.
Kathy, would it be appropriate to add a condition to something like this? No alcohol or any other recreational substances permitted on premises?
I think that's fine as condition 5.
Okay, thank you.
All right. It's up to the board.
Tell you, could Commissioner Manley repeat that condition number 5 that we're adding?
Current wording would be no alcohol or any other recreational substances, which covers a lot of ground, permitted on premises.
What about food?
I don't have a problem with them bringing a snack or a energy bar. I mean, that would be.
That does raise a good question, though. Any food on the premises, if not properly disposed of, would then create the opportunity for waste issues in vermin. But, that's, to your point, Martine, I would say that's not a big deal. Our big concern here is people partying after hours, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add, I'm not too concerned about the 24/7 access. I like the gym for golfers analogy. I think with the membership model and the key card access, it really prevents random members of the public just walking up and, creating an issue and things like that. So unless one of our kids steals our cell phone. So with that, I'm going to make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that we approve CU-25-16 Golf Envy, Windward Master Plan Pod 4, as per the conditions read by Ms. Cook.
I'll second. Oh,
Oops, and we want to add condition 5 that says, no alcohol or any other recreational substances permitted on premises.
I'll second that one.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carries. Will go before council on November 17th, 2025. All right, does the board want a break before we go to the next item? 5 minutes break. This meeting is already in order, so we just resume from where we left off. The next item is MP-25-08/CU-25-13/V-2517, Hanover Windward Parkway Park, Windward Master Plan, Port 66. Ms. Cook is on again.
Mrs. Cook, if you want to wait one second, George,
Okay.
we'll be
Gotta
right
wait for
back.
George.
Yeah.
Ready? Okay. The next application, the area is shown to you on the screen, and the applicants are requesting a master plan amendment, conditional use and variances to modify the development mix in the 47.65 acre Windward Park mixed-use development, including exchanging 134 sale condominium units for 315 for rent units, reducing office and commercial uses. A master plan amendment is requested to the Windward Master Plan Pod 66, and a conditional use is requested to allow dwelling for rent regulations to increase and also to increase the distance between off-street parking and residential units, reduce the minimum floor area of required balconies, and reduce first floor minimum ceiling heights. Properties located at 0 North Point Parkway and 0 Dryden Road at the southwest corner of Windward Parkway and North Point Parkway. And the Windward Park mixed-use development is currently developed with 185 for-sale townhomes, a 250-room Hilton Hotel, and then there's several internal streets. And then there was also, just a couple of years ago, additional townhomes, 100 that were approved within the master plan. Let me show you the site plan. So the changes will be focused on this pod, which this was previously shown as 130 condo units when the townhomes were approved. And so the request is to change that to 315, also reduce the retail and the office. And there was a chart that we included within your packet that shows the applicant's proposal versus 2023 entitlements and the 2015 entitlements. And again, the office basically goes from half. If you look at the 2015, 2023 to where they are today, it's a reduction of approximately half of the original 500,000 square feet of office. And in the beginning, in 2015, there was about 415 residential units, and that included for-sale condos, townhomes, and what we called live-work townhomes at that time. 2023, it went to the for-sale condos, 285 for-sale townhomes, and now the request is to change that to the 315. We also included a table within the report showing the variances. There are a few variances. Again, one of them is increase the distance between off-street parking and residential units from 400 feet to 900 feet, and that's here. So the parking for this residential structure is here. So there would be a bridge, and I'll show you of what that looks like here in the next few minutes. So the parking for the residential multifamily would be connected, and the parking would be exceeding the 400 feet that's required by code. They also have they're requesting to reduce the minimum floor area of some of the required balconies, and that's required within our supplemental regulations for multifamily. We did look at the overall square footage that they're proposing for the balconies, so if this was approved, staff would be okay with the change in the balconies because they do meet the overall intent. The other variance is reduce the first floor minimum ceiling height from 14 feet to 12 feet. Again, part of our supplemental regulations for multifamily is to make sure that it's part of a mixed-use development. A lot of times with the retail and the grocery requirement, you want the taller ceilings, and so our supplemental regulations require 14 feet. And on that particular one, the 12-foot ceiling height for the first floor residential leasing amenity space, and I think I have a blow-up of where that is. So this one that I'm putting on the overhead is a blow-up of the orange multifamily. So the applicant is looking for the reduction from the 14 to the 12 just for this amenity space that's for the multifamily. They would comply with the 14-foot for the retail at the corner they're proposing, as well as the executive office. They're also looking to reduce parking requirements for the for-rent building from 685 spaces to 580 spaces. They're looking to reduce the parking ratio from 2.05, which is what our code requires, to allow a 1.7 spaces per unit for their parking. So it would be a reduction of 105 spaces if the variance were approved. Back to the site plan, it depicts a 5-story for-rent building consisting of 315 for-rent units. The retail restaurant that was at the corner, that's 3,790 square feet. They also have 10,905 square feet of leasing and amenity space, and that is in this area here. They have a 5-level shared parking garage, which is depicted across from the structure here. Again, shared parking deck has 580 spaces, and according to the applicant's letter of intent, the shared parking deck will provide all parking for the for-rent building, with any excess parking being shared with the Site 1 office building that is planned, but not planned to be constructed at the same time as the multifamily. So the applicant's intent is to be able to use any excess parking here for the planned office. However, again, it's 105 spaces short for the multifamily. Site plan calls out 7.15 acres or 15% open space, which meets our minimum open space requirement for the CUP district. And they also have amenity space depicted for the for-rent building. They have a swimming pool, courtyard, and additional courtyard and gas grills. And in looking at this application, of course, we give careful consideration is given to maintaining a balance of for rent to for sale within the city. Our comprehensive land use plan identifies a housing policy as it relates to maintaining a balance between owner-occupied and rental. And the housing policy states that to maintain a balance between owner-occupied and renter-occupied in Alpharetta, such that at least 68% of the housing stock is owner-occupied. We look at other factors. Of course, is there office, are there jobs on site when you put in multifamily as well as a mixed-use development? The reduction from 500 square feet to 252, 790 square feet is a reduction, of course, in future jobs that could be available. High-density housing should be tied to office space where jobs exist and are created, and service uses are available, which would limit vehicular trips. So that the high-density mixed-use sites should have those amenities on site to be able to reduce the vehicular traffic. City's rental housing study, which was updated in June 2022, recommends an annual target entitlement of approximately 116 for rent units per year for the city in order to achieve the housing policy. While the minimum 68% owner-occupied housing policy is included in the comp plan, the annual target recommendation is not an approved city policy. This is a goal, of course, and a recommendation. And looking at the recommendation of 116 for rent units, we are recommending that if this application is approved, that a CO would not be issued until 2030, and that's just to keep to the 6832. If you remember, we've had 2 rentals, mixed-use developments approved in the last couple of years. One of them was Continuum, and of course, we just had the Brookside mixed use that was approved. Looking at traffic, the applicant's proposal increases residential density, decreases commercial. Trip generation table shows that there's an overall decrease of 79 AM peak hour trips and 81 PM peak hour trips. We did check with the schools to see what the proposed enrollment would be, and it's a big estimate. I mean, it goes from 8 to 154, so it's a pretty big range that they gave us for the estimates. And I didn't put any of the elevations up here, so let me do that real quick. And I'm sure the applicant will have that as part of their presentation, but I'm going to show that real quick. So for this view that I'm going to put, you're looking here at the connection. So this would be the parking deck, the multifamily, and there is a pedestrian bridge. This is probably a better view here. And these are the townhomes that were previously approved that Empire's under construction with. And there's that bridge connection. This is a view if you're at the proposed office building looking across their stormwater park that's part of their amenities, looking at the multifamily. And then one more. This is a view looking down the street from the Empire townhomes that were approved on both sides. And the multifamily is here. You can see the Hilton behind it. So staff reviewed the applicant's proposal against our established review criteria for a master plan amendment, conditional use, and variance. And the master plan amendment is consistent with the future land use designation of the property in the Windward Park mixed-use development, is located close proximity to Georgia 400. It's nearby, it has access to MARTA, nearby access, of course, to the highway, but high-density housing should be tied to office space where jobs exist, and the applicant is not proposing to build any of the office concurrently, and there's actually a reduction in the office. We are recommending, if it is approved, that 119,000 square feet of office should be developed concurrently with the 315 for rent units. And then finally, the proposed off-street parking for the rental building does not comply with the city's parking requirements. The citizen participation plan was completed by the applicant, and the report states that questions were received from the public concerning the development history, Empire townhomes that are under construction, plan to signalize 2 intersections, plans to improve the streetscape, and ownership use of the common areas that are proposed. Additional questions regarding the for rent building, including the non-residential space amenities, what type of retail that they're going to have within the building. So those are several of the questions that they had. Staff is recommending denial of MP 2508, CU 2513, V 2517. However, we did include conditions, 17 different conditions, if approval is considered by the Planning Commission. And that concludes staff presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kathy. Any questions for Ms. Cook at this time?
Yes, I have a question, Ms. Cook. Could you put the site plan back up?
Sure.
So I want to key in on this office component and just make sure my takeaways are accurate. So the applicant has an office noted on their site plan.
Right, here and here.
But in their markups to the conditions, they marked through the reference to constructing that office concurrent with the for rent units. So that by definition is, right, that's not a commitment to actually construct the office units concurrently with the 4 rent units. So it's one thing to have it in the picture, but if you strike through it in the conditions that you're being held to, it means you don't want to be held to that at all.
Right, and in the past, we have required that multifamily be built concurrently.
Right.
With an office and different square footages, but it has required the concurrency. If it's outside of a downtown, of course, in a downtown, you have properties that are anywhere from ½ acre to up to 5 acres, so the whole downtown is that mixed use. But outside of the downtown, there is a office component.
Okay, and I will ask the applicant about that. I just wanted to make sure, based on your presentation, I
You're
was
correct.
seeing both the site plan and the conditions correctly. Thank you.
Kathy, I do have one question on the office building that is adjacent to the stormwater park. I'm just trying to make sure I understand this. So there is a parking deck between there and the MARTA stop. Is that big gray building?
They're showing that.
And then the excess parking in the residential deck will be used for that as well? So that, maybe that's a question for them.
Yeah, and that's what they're saying, but that's not going to be built concurrently. So when that is built, it'll actually have to meet its parking requirements for that office building. And so there's not going to be a share opportunity.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
But yes, it does say that in their intent.
Kathy, you always do such a great job in your presentation, but could you go back to page 4, where you show the Windward Park development comparison?
Yes.
Because I really think this is important for the people in the audience and people watching online, so that they can get a better grasp of page 4, the table, the table.
And this may help too, because
Okay.
that was the Windward Park development comparison. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, like,
Yeah.
So
So this was the original one back in 2015. So it had the retail components here. It did have townhomes, and then it had the condo units, for sale condos. And then it was in the 2023 where it changed, and that retail component that was here along North Point, that changed to a for sale townhome, and that's the Empire townhomes that were approved in 2023. And then at that time in 2022, approved 2023, they showed condos, which have now, instead of the condos, they're showing the multifamily. And so they did have office. Office was previously shown on these 2 parcels. So the big change you can see from the original in 2015 is this retail that went away. They had the large condo building here, townhomes here, but they still had the 2 office. I don't know if that's helpful, but
Yeah, that was very helpful. But I also wanted to make sure that the audience understands from the comparison, you know, what the applicant is actually asking for, again, is like in 2023, the entitlement was for 130 for-sale condos, and now they're requesting 4 rent units of 315, correct?
correct.
And then we're going to go from a density of 8.7 dwelling units per acre to 12.6. We're reducing the square footage of office from 500,000 to 252,000, roughly 790.
Correct.
And we're going from an entitlement of 31,400 square feet, and we're reducing it to 20,615. And then there's a variety of variances requested. One in particular is the increase of the distance between the off-site parking, and the other one being the reduced parking requirements, what doesn't even meet current code, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to make sure our audience understood that. Okay.
That's a great summary. Thank you.
Kathy, could you readdress the apartments to individual home dwelling formula. How does this, in what's already been approved and being built, and maybe also on the drawing board, how does this figure into the apartment equation?
Yeah, so we put a chart, I think it's on, let's see, maybe helpful, but on page 6 of the report, we do look at any current entitlements. So within our recommendation, we looked at if the goal is to try to keep the housing policy of 6832, we should not give entitlements to more than 116 rental units per year. So looking at that and putting into our calculations that Continuum will come online in 2026. In 2027, Portman should come online with 335. We would be able to keep our 6832 policy if we waited until 2030 for the applicant to have a certificate of occupancy.
How many units does Continuum?
Continuum has 280.
So is that about 500 or 600? I did the second 280, and what was the other number?
Brookside,
Yeah,
that one is 335.
so almost 600 units rental.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No further questions at this time. We're going to ask the applicant to come forward and make a presentation. Nice to see you again. See you, Dr. Pagoo.
Just call him Spiffy.
Thank you, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Den Webb, 1105 West Peachtree Street, Atlanta, Georgia, 30309, here on behalf of the applicant. Let me touch on a few things that were just raised while they're fresh in everyone's mind. Number one, there was a mention of school impact that is addressed in the staff report. You saw from the chart that there could be up to 154 students, according to the ratios provided. Hanover knows from experience they typically have about 5 in their developments. But I will say, when the school board did review this application, they indicated that all schools that would be affected are under capacity. Number two, there was a question about concurrency. We are asking to remove the concurrency requirement for office and the multifamily. Concurrency has held this project back. You guys know this project has struggled, is not in great shape now, and the only items that have ever been built on that site are ones that were not bound by concurrency requirements. So again, we're not trying to get away from the office. We're still showing two buildings that total 250,000 square feet on this site. What we're trying to do is catalyze the development of those 2 offices. This is the only development or mixed-use development in the city of Alpharetta without multifamily. And what we're hearing from our office interested parties is there is not enough density here. But the intent, again, is not to get away from office, it's to support it and bring it to this site. Lastly, there was a comment about shared parking. We're sharing parking on the new deck with the office. That's not really the case, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later once we get to that topic. With that, let me start by introducing the folks who are here with me tonight. To my left is Adam Harbin. Adam is the Regional Development Partner for Hanover. To my right here is Blake Upchurch. Blake is a Development Associate with Hanover. And the man in the middle, who I believe some of you will recognize, is Rob Kinchelow, who is with Meta. Meta owns this property at issue. Some of you folks may have heard of Hanover. It's a name you see around town. It's a family-owned business. They are considered a premier multifamily developer in this country. They have a regional office in Atlanta, and they have delivered projects really in every major market in this country. And if you turn to page 2 of my handout, and by the way, the handout that I have provided to you is numbered in the bottom right-hand corner, so I'll refer on occasion to the page numbers. I have the ability to put this up on a screen, but since there's so few people here now, I decided we would just use the handout.
If you can, are there people who watch online that would be helpful. And you can probably take the staple out and put it on the screen, and we'll be able to see.
You want me to put up my computer or use this overhead?
I believe the overhead, somebody can come and,
You can sit.
Well, I'm glad Blake's going to flip it. One reason I don't like to use the PDF is because I'm terrible about keeping up with it. I like these handouts.
yeah, he can do it, yeah.
All right, so we're on page 2, Blake. Again, I'm not going to get too deep into this, but I mentioned that Hanover has worked really in every major market in this country. It has 8 projects here in Metro Atlanta. I've highlighted a couple here. You'll notice there are 2 in Buckhead, one referred to as Hanover East Paces, the other is Hanover Village. That is literally facing the triangle at the intersection of Roswell and Peachtree Road in the heart of Buckhead. In the bottom left-hand corner, that's Hanover Perimeter. That's part of the Perimeter Center area. That's, I believe, technically in Sandy Springs. And in the bottom right-hand corner is a building I pass by just about every day on my way home from work, known as Hanover Midtown. I did something here, was able to do something here that I'm not typically able to do. I was able to include reference letters with the application. Did anyone see those reference letters in what we submitted? That is a unique situation when stakeholders from all over this country write letters to say how much they respect this company. And how, if you looked at those letters, you'll notice that just about all of them noted that Hanover is infamous for its attention to detail and commitment to quality. And that is exactly, I think, what best describes it. When Hanover comes into a market, they strive to be best in class, period. And they do that in part by handling every aspect of the development, right? They are vertically integrated, which allows them to control things like design, development, architecture, interior design, landscape design, construction, and property management. They handle every aspect of the development process to make sure that the product that is ultimately created meets their standard. When I first met with Adam and Blake, a comment was made, we strive to be the St. Regis Hotel on that level, while most Class A developers strive to be something like the W Hotel. And the way they do that is by focusing on everything and including the little things. And I think part of the way they handle this process allows them to do that. If you turn to page 3, you'll see a little bit of detail on the property. I know this is one you know, but just briefly, it's in the southeast quadrant of Georgia 400 and Windward Parkway. As you all know, it is referred to as Windward Park. It's 47.65 acres. Kathy already covered the zoning and future land use map designation for this property. But I want to make sure everybody understands what is actually on this property. There's a 250-key hotel, which you see marked in sort of the upper right-hand corner of this image. There are 187 townhomes. They're referred to as Caravel on the left-hand side. And there are 50 more townhomes in development now, which are where the yellow pin on this page is. That's it. This site has been in process since the year 2007. That's the first time it came for zoning approval in this city. It went through a DRI process in that time, and for the last 18 years, the owners have been trying to make something happen here, and as you can see from the amount of green in the middle of this site, that has proved difficult. Importantly, this property is part of what is called Pod 66 of the Windward Master Plan. We talked about density earlier, and actually, if you look at the staff report, the density is calculated over the entirety of Pod 66. So the density for this particular development is actually about 2.5 units per acre. I think you can tell from this image, and I know you guys have been out here before, I think Windward Park, and no offense, Rob, is fairly characterized as a development that struggled. Again, it was originally approved in 2007. There were grand ambitions for the site at that time. It included for sale, residential, office, and retail, but none of that was delivered under the 2007 plan. As you heard from Ms. Cook, there were attempts in 2015 and 23 to modify the plan to find something that would work. And if you look at page 4, Kathy covered this, but this is the current entitlement on this property. It allows for 500,000 square feet of office at 2 locations. Again, the same ones that we are talking about facing Windward Parkway and again adjacent to the MARTA Park and Ride. It was entitled for 31,440 square feet of retail, a 250-key hotel, 130 condominiums, and 285 townhomes. This plan, like the ones before, just really hasn't worked. This site was graded out. In fact, the areas that you see surrounding the roundabout in the internal to the site you see in the aerial were actually graded out over 10 years ago. The roads, the infrastructure were also put in over 10 years ago. And as I just mentioned, the only things that have been built in this entire time are the hotel and the townhomes. What the owner has spent an inordinate amount of time trying to do is bring office and commercial to this site. This property is right next to a MARTA Park and Ride. It's right adjacent to Georgia 400 and a major access point. It's got a hotel, but office has not been interested. And again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the message has been there is not enough density on this property to support that type of use or commercial use. And again, as I mentioned at the very beginning, Windward Park is the only major mixed-use development in this entire city that does not have multifamily. So I talked about the fact that the owner is hoping that this best-in-class multifamily use will bring the missing piece that will finally lure office and commercial to this site. That is the hope here, and that is why Hanover is here tonight. It's been engaged in this process really for over a year. I'm going to refer to the same sort of site plan exhibit that Ms. Cook referred to on page 5. As she mentioned, the area that you see in the southeast corner at the intersection of Dryden Road and North Point Parkway is really the primary site at issue. That's the piece of property that's entitled for 130 condominiums now, and that's the piece of property that Hanover hopes to put 315 multifamily units on. The building proposed is 5 stories. There is a unit breakdown on the sheet you see on the right-hand corner, but I'll briefly touch on those. 56% of the units will be 1 bedroom. That equates to 177. 41% will be 2 bedroom, which equates to 129. And 3% will be 3 bedrooms. That equates to 9 units total. And I think more importantly for a lot of folks who will be living in and around this property, this development includes non-residential ground floor uses. And I'm going to walk through because I think something was mischaracterized earlier. Starting with the frontage on Safe Haven Place, you'll see some colored boxes. I'm going to touch on those colored boxes. The first one is the blue box that Ms. Cook referred to. That is the amenity and leasing area. It totals roughly 11,000 square feet. Moving to the right or east or page east is a gray area. I don't typically talk about this kind of thing, but I highlighted it here because there's something very unusual. That is a trash and loading area. But Hanover approaches move in and move out differently than a lot of the other multifamily users of the country. This is where the trucks go. You make an appointment, you back your truck into the space which is internal to the building, and a door closes. And that is the only way you can move or move into or move out of one of these buildings. This does not occur on the public right-of-way. And again, I wanted to highlight that. It's not really a functional feature for most people on the street, but I think it sort of goes back to what I brought up in the beginning, that there is no stone unturned on a Hanover development. To the right of that, you'll see an area red. That actually is the area proposed for retail space. It's 5,615 square feet, and that will include a commitment from Hanover to build or reserve at least 3,000 square feet for a local grocer. And lastly, this is where I think there's a little bit of confusion about ceiling height, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is the green area. These will be office suites. So the square footage proposed is 3,790, and these are not just for the residents of this multifamily space, they are also available for public use. So again, the hope is that this multifamily will catalyze the bigger office units to be built, but in a small way, this development is also bringing for the first time commercial and office space to Windward Park. If you turn to the next page, page 6, I just want to highlight the fact that there's a little bit more detail on what is occurring between the edges of the building and the street. If you look along Safe Haven Place and Dryden Road, you'll notice a significant amount of hardscape, furniture, and landscaping, which will activate the areas in front of these buildings on the public right-of-way. On the west and south sides, or at least page west and page south, there will be ground floor residential units. Those will be walkout with direct access to the sidewalks. And of course, as I'm sure you can imagine, and Kathy touched on this a little bit, the building will be heavily amenitized. You can tell from the site plan that there are 2 courtyards proposed. They're actually connected by a loge. One of them will include a resort-style pool. The other will include a variety of things, including gas grills for the residents. Within the amenity space is a fitness center. Also in the building is a private screening room, clubhouse with catering kitchen, pet wash, and on and on. And as Kathy talked on, and I'm going to dig into this a little bit further in a few minutes, the parking is provided in a deck across Safe Haven Place from this property. And again, the building is connected to the deck by a sky bridge, and we've got some good images of that I'll get to in a minute. If you turn to page 7, slides 7 through 11 are really exterior views of the building and how they could round out the Windward Park development. The only point I'm going to make on those is that this has been a work in progress. We have had a number of meetings with staff. We've had a number of meetings with the elected officials. There were things that were requested to be changed, particularly with the exterior look of the building. This reflects the latest and greatest concept. You'll notice that, for one thing, there's a lot of red brick here, which someone on the council specifically requested. So this, again, is the result of some collaboration between Hanover and the city to create a look that makes sense at this property. If you look at the slides 12 through 14, you'll just see some images of the outdoor amenity space, as well as some of the indoor amenities and the unit finishes. Kathy touched on our request here, but just to be crystal clear, because I know everybody's trying to summarize what we're doing, because it is a little bit complicated. Number 1, we are part of the Windward Master Plan, Pod 66. We're asking to amend that master plan to, number 1, allow our use, and number 2, to substitute the site plan that is part of the packet that was on the screen earlier, which is the new site plan, for the old site plan, the 2022 plan. And we're also asking to allow for the modifications that we have talked about to the office. The second request, again, is a CUP to authorize 4 rent uses, and the last is for 4 variances, and I guess I'll talk about that a little bit now.
Have we exceeded the 10 minutes?
I've got 6 applications, technically.
Say that again?
So I've got a master plan amendment, a CUP, and 4 variances. And I would typically am allowed more than 10 minutes, or 10 minutes per application.
Does that make a difference, or is it considered one application? I'm just asking a clarification question.
Well, we came back from the recess at 7:50, and it's 8:25. I think it would be up to your call, Chairman, if you want to consider this separate applications.
Well, enough time to finish.
I'm not asking for 10 minutes per, but if I could get 10 more minutes, I can wrap this up. 10 minutes or less. Let me talk about the variances. We spent a significant amount of time working with staff on those, and we certainly appreciate their time and input. Just so you know, I know there are 4 here, and people are like, 4 variances, wow. We've actually gotten rid of 3. And on most of the others, because of the efforts we put in with staff, we think we've been able to bring them quite close to the spirit of the code. Ms. Cook talked about one of them and actually conceded that fact, and that relates to the balcony requirement. Again, the code states that a minimum of 50% of the dwelling units above the first floor shall have balconies with minimum floor dimensions of 6 by 8. Here, we have 271 units above the first floor, so the code would require 136 units have balconies, and it would also require that those balconies total 6,528 square feet. As she touched on briefly, we're actually providing 143 units with balconies, and 29 have 2. We're also providing more than the 6,528 that is required by code when you add them all up. Not a lot more, but a little bit more. But here's the reason for the request. And I was thinking about this today as I was driving out here. I work in Midtown, right across the street. Out my view of the office, out of my office window is a condo next door that's relatively new. Every unit has a balcony. I would say that somewhere in the neighborhood of 50, maybe a little bit more % of those balconies are empty. They're concrete slabs with railing. A significant portion of the others, or a portion of the others, have furniture, but it's sort of a grab bag. You know, my kids play baseball and other sports. I've got those folding chairs at the back of my car at all times. There are quite a few of those on those balconies. There's a hodgepodge of different types of furniture there. And lastly, there are a significant number of those units that are using those balconies for storage. I could guarantee you that at any one time, there are at least 2 to 3 flat screen boxes sitting out on those balconies staring at me from across West Peachtree Road. Here, we are providing balconies. In fact, some of them will be significantly larger than what the code would require, but we also include some smaller ones, like Juliet balconies. Those are functional balconies. In fact, I noticed a couple when I was walking towards the coffee shop before this hearing. They have functional doors. You can walk out on them. They're about 18 feet deep. And in this case, we have really beefed up the railing to add an architectural accent to them. But the point is, they're big enough to use, but they're not big enough to junk up. And that's really sort of the reason for the request here. We're providing more balconies than the code would insist that we have. We've got a little bit more square footage that the code would insist that we have, but we'd like some variability on the size really to fit better into Hanover's program for this particular project. The second item relates to ceiling height. As Kathy mentioned, there is a code requirement. The ceiling height for multifamily on the ground floor shall be a minimum of 14 feet. We are fine with 14 feet for the retail space. In fact, what I understand is Hanover is going to be looking at something in the neighborhood of 17 to 18 feet. What they're asking to reduce from 14 to 12 feet is the ceiling height for the residential, the ceiling heights for the office suites, and the ceiling heights for the leasing and amenity space. And that is based on experience. All right, this is not the first time Hanover has dealt with this requirement. And the fact is, particularly in the residential spaces, people complain. A 14-foot ceiling height can seem cavernous. It can seem echoey. It's just not an amenity that is appropriate for residential space. In fact, the industry standard is about 9 feet. We are proposing to go to 12 here. And really, this is not some trick to save money. There's no benefit to Hanover per se, other than the fact that it knows residents don't like these, and it is all about delivering the product that their resident type wants. Variance number 3 relates to the distance to the parking deck. If you go back to page 15, you'll see the site plan. This is the same image that Kathy referred to. Just to be clear, the code states the required off-street parking spaces shall be no greater than 400 feet as measured along pedestrian walkway from the door of the unit they serve. The face of our building is 75 feet from the face of the parking deck. What the code is really talking about is the furthest unit in the back has to be within 400 feet of the furthest parking spot on the other side of the parking deck. And that is something we simply cannot do here. As we've discussed, this site was essentially laid out 20 years ago. The lots and infrastructure were put in 10. Sort of the layout has been set, and there's not a thing we can do about it, and we didn't have anything to do with establishing that pattern. So our only option here is Site 1. And again, I'm going to talk about this in a minute. We don't think that'll be an issue for a variety of reasons. This is the last variance, and I want to spend a little bit more time on this because this one's important. And it relates to the parking space requirement. Again, we are providing a parking deck with 580 spaces. That's the proposal. That will serve the commercial and office uses we are proposing for this property. We have fully parked those uses. We have every space the code would require for the commercial and office, and it will be in a segregated part of this deck, so it will not be intermingled with the residential. What we are asking to do is to reduce the requirement just for the residential from what the code requires, 2.05 spaces per unit, which is a 1980s type number. I don't know who up here is in real estate development, but that's a number I never see. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute too. But we're asking to reduce the requirement just for the residential from the 2.05 spaces required by code to 1.7. And if you turn to slide 18, you'll see what was included within the packet submitted to you. Some data on traffic. The first relates to the 8 projects that Hanover has delivered in Metro Atlanta. You will notice that not one project, all of which are comparable to what we're proposing here, has been parked at more than 1.5 spaces per unit. Not one. The highest number is 1.5. The average is 1.34. And I think there's a piece of information that really sort of rounds us out. If you look at number 3, that's Arabelle perimeter. That's a Sandy Springs location that's parked at 1.4 spaces per unit. That's a site that is a lot like this one in a lot of ways. It's basically at the intersection of Hammond and Peachtree Dunwoody Road. There are similarities in a number of ways. And again, it was built out at 1.4 spaces per unit. After that site was leased up, Hanover commissioned a study to understand how does the parking actually work on this site. And somebody went out there and took counts, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for an extended period of time. And that study showed that at the highest peak of parking lot activity at that location, only 1.37 units, parking spaces per unit were required. So that's certainly a number that's in line with Hanover's experience. Again, that's about what the average is in their developments, but it's also in line with other comparable cities in the Southeast. We've included a chart here that shows Davidson, North Carolina, outside of Charlotte, Plano, Texas, outside of Dallas, Roswell, Georgia, outside of here, obviously, and Franklin, Tennessee, outside of Nashville. And each of those examples has a parking ratio allowed that is lower than what we're asking for here. And I know the point is going to be made, what about Avalon? We've got to cut all kinds of parking problems at Avalon. That is not an apples-to-apples comparison. We have talked to the releasing agent at Avalon. There is no issue for the residents parking. The issue is the shared parking with 600,000 square feet of retail here. Again, we're talking about less than 6,000 square feet of retail on our site. So that is, the problems they're having now cannot and will not happen here. I'm going to wrap it up, but let me just touch briefly on the staff report. I mean, Kathy mentioned the recommendation is for denial. And if you've read that report, there is a theme that is echoed that you heard again tonight. They shouldn't be allowed to build multifamily without building the office. And my response to that is, we've spent 20 years chasing office at this location. We spent 20 years chasing commercial. For the last 10 years of it, the site has been developed. The infrastructure's been in place, the roadway network's been there. There have been some other activities like a hotel that would be attractive to the office and commercial user, but it has not worked. And so, again, we're not trying to abandon office at this site. I mean, Rob and I have had extended conversations about how much time and effort he and his partners have expended in trying to bring that use to this property. We're not trying to get away from it. We're just trying to get to it in a different way. And as I mentioned, we believe that this Hanover multifamily development will potentially serve as a catalyst in conjunction with the fact that we're right at 400, we're adjacent to a MARTA station, we've got a hotel right next door. We think that hopefully that synergy will bring the uses that we've been trying to get on this property for over 20 years. Lastly, I won't touch on this, but Kathy talked about the conditions proposed, and that came up earlier. We have redlined some conditions. Basically, the program was to change the conditions to allow what we're asking for, but also get rid of concurrencies. I talked about it a little bit in the beginning. Concurrency has held this project back from the very beginning. It was part of the 2007 approval. It was removed, ironically, in 2015 and put back in 2023. But the only things that have ever been built on this property in the last 18 years were items that did not have a concurrency requirement. So our hope is that we can get away from that, that particular request. And with that, I think I'll stop. I'm happy to take your questions. I'll reserve any time I have remaining.
Thank you. I have a question to start us off. Between 2023 and now, about a little over 2 years, what changed?
Well, I think, and I'm going to ask Rob to come up here and talk a little bit about this. I think in 2023, first of all, that request started with a hope for multifamily. I don't know how many of you were on the Planning Commission then, but I recognize a lot of faces here. So that's where that request started. The fallback position was condominiums. There is no condo market, period. I haven't worked on a condo deal in 15 years in the state of Georgia. There is no financing for condominiums, number one. So I think it was a default position because they couldn't get what they wanted. They were hopeful that they could pursue that. They did, but again, it wasn't an option. But I think, again, there's not one thing, it's a lot of things. I was thinking about, Alpharetta today. I've been working up here long enough to know how much change has occurred. I remember when City Hall was in that crummy little building, that way. The fact is, there are a lot of things that have impacted this project. like Avalon. Avalon's opened 10 years ago when the 2015 plan was approved. This building opened 10 years ago when the 2015 plan was approved, and none of that stuff that you see in the downtown area existed, right? Those factor in to the success of this development. We've had a pandemic. I don't need to explain to you, the office market is deader than a doornail, particularly in suburban areas away from urban centers and the amenities that folks want in an urban center. So, I'm not sure it's one thing, it's a stew of things, but the fact is, zoning is not a static process, right? You've got to respond to the market. And that's what we're trying to do here. We still want a mixed-use development here. We still want it to have the essential elements that it has always been proposed to have, but we've not been able to make it work under the existing entitlements. We're trying to come at this in a different way. And that's why Rob went out and brought the best-in-class multifamily developer here, thinking that would finally allow us to get over the hump and deliver the project that everyone's wanted to see on this site.
The reason I asked the question was I remember way back in 2007 when I believe it was Windward Mill, and then the 2015, and I've been here since 2008. So I joined the Planning Commission just after the first approval was made, and then I was here in 2015, 2023. It's only 2 years since. And it appears like the perception would be, I'm not saying this is the truth, that the developer gets an approval and then a little bit later pushes a little more. There has been active, probably passive resistance to the density in this location, especially for rent units, because the city has a policy regarding this that has been eloquently stated by Ms. Cook. And now we have 315 for rent units 2 years after the approval of 2023. So the question I always look at when we make an approval like this, what is the compelling reason? Something that is so big you can't miss it. And I'm not finding it looking at the application and listening to your presentation. I'm challenging a little bit to explain more and convince the board and the city what has changed from 2023 to now, as much as we didn't even want the first development in 2007 or 2015 or 2023. It's a little push a little bit at a time. So I think you've heard my question.
I think 2023 was an attempt to find the secret sauce that would allow this now 18-year-old development to move forward. I can assure you this, there is absolutely no compelling reason and no benefit to Meta to spend 18 years owning this property and trying to find a user for it. I mean, they're paying taxes on it, they're maintaining it. There is no reason to not develop it. I think the message is if they could have gotten office here in the last 10 years, the last 2 years, and the last 18 years, they would have done it. I mean, there is no one in the world who wants to sit on this graded out, developed site. If they could have done it, they would. And I think that's the point. We're trying to find the right way to move this development forward. I can't imagine anyone on this commission wants to see this project stay in its current state for the next 20 years. So what's changed is, again, it's not 2 years, it's 10 years, it's 15 years. But in 2023, in 2015, they're trying to find a way to move this ball forward. And
well, Hanover agreed in 2015, in 2023, why didn't they do it?
What's that?
In 2015, when this was approved, the developer was fine with it. Why didn't they do it then, or 2023?
Well, again, I mean, at the time it made sense, but then Avalon opened.
No, this is 2 years ago.
Okay, well, you were talking about 2015. Again, I don't think you can isolate that one point. They came in to find multifamily because they believed that would be the savior for this development. That would be the catalyst to potentially bring some of the things that they want to see on the site here. You didn't want that. So they went to the next closest thing, which was a condo building in a similar configuration on the same location, and they went out and tried to market that. It didn't work. So again, the secret sauce to mixed use is multifamily. And you know that because every single mixed-use development this city has approved has it, except for this one. So again, that's the funny thing about this. You can't pick one moment in time and say, well, you know, why didn't that work? Or why are you back? Because again, you have to look at the continuum here and factor in all the changes. The center of gravity for office and commercial has changed. It is right here, and it is at Avalon. So the question is for everybody else, like landowners in Windward Park, how can we change to reflect the changing market? And we think
Let's
this is the
assume
point.
let's assume we concur on that point. Can you explain the concurrency with the office?
So,
With the
yeah,
developer of this
I've got the
magnitude,
conditions.
how can they not do both at the same time to meet the city's requirement?
Well, for one thing, Hanover is buying one site, right? Hanover doesn't build multifamily. That would be up, Hanover doesn't build office. That would be up to Meta to build it on site one across Save and Place. Let me ask you this. What would your pitch be to the banks or capital markets on why you want to put office on site one? You know, seriously. Right, there is a consistent history of failure to bring that use to this property, right? I don't imagine a world in which a spec building could be built because they've not been able to lease it up in the last 18 years. Again, I think because this development is sad. I mean, it really is. We're trying to move the ball on this and to make it better. It's as simple as that with the hope that the office will come. But the concurrency requirement has held us back. There is no financing for office. They've not been able to find an office tenant for 10 years. You know, and again, there are some time requirements in here too that make that concurrency requirement difficult. There is a point that we have to wait before we can pull a permit, right? But there's also a point at which if we haven't started development, the city can come in and change our entitlement. There's just a weird interaction of time there. But the office and multifamily uses just aren't tied together, and they can't be. And that's, I don't think Hanover could get financing for its multifamily deal if its lender knew that if it built its building, it was ready to lease it up, but it couldn't get a CO because Meta wasn't able to develop the office across the street. It's just tying those uses together has been really an albatross around the neck of this development from the day one. And as I've said a couple times tonight, the only things that have ever been built on this property were not subject to concurrency requirements.
Are you to other commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I've got a question. So just continuing on the office topic, you said just a moment ago, we're not trying to get away from it. We're trying to get at it a different way. Can you just expand on that?
Yeah, so again, we're trying to bring the building blocks to this property that will make this very tempting to an office developer. We've already got a hotel, a great hotel, by the way. I don't know if you guys have been in there, but it's shockingly nice. We've already got great access to the highway. We've already got access to transit in the MARTA Park and Ride, but we don't have the density to support it. We don't have the kinds of living arrangements that a lot of office users want. I mean, I talk about this all the time. You know, let's imagine a company relocates to Alpharetta from Baltimore, Maryland, right? There are going to be employees relocating. There are going to be people coming out, kids coming out of college to come work for that company who don't know thing one about Alpharetta. I think it's a little bit unreasonable to expect everybody to plunk down money and buy something, you know, particularly at that age when they're new to an area. They want to find something close to work. They want time to explore their new city and decide whether this is where they want to stay, right? And that's why having this type of use next to an office is attractive, in addition to the fact that this multifamily space will have ground floor retail, like a restaurant, like a coffee shop, that the office users can come over and access as well. But again, we're trying to get away from concurrency because we can't tie the two together. They would be developed by different people at different times, and we've had a bad track record with office, but we are not giving up on the office use. We are still showing 250,000 square feet of office, which in this market is a significant amount.
The other question I had is, and I was here as well in 2023 for the two hearings we had with the applicant at that time, and I'm just curious, why was 134 rent units okay with the applicant in January of 2023, but today 315 is the ask, 3x? Why is that?
Yeah, let me ask Rob to address it. I was not here in 2023, so let me ask Rob to step up and talk about that.
Hello, everyone. Rob Kinchelow, 426 Burlington Road, Atlanta, Georgia. I'm with the master developer representative. The answer to your question, sir, that was within our existing entitlements as far as the total unit count, and we did not reduce the office at that time. And to not trigger a DRI and reopen those reviews, we stayed within our existing entitlements. So that was the remaining residential density within that 415 unit count that Kathy recommended. We recognize moving here today, the office tenant market has gotten nothing but worse. And so we reduced that office in favor of the multifamily. And it makes the multifamily work better at that size for the site from an operational standpoint. So,
Okay, and then I've got one last question. I don't know if you can answer this or Mr. Weber, but right now your variance request for the for-rent residential parking is over 100 spaces short. To my knowledge, the city doesn't have any precedent for approving that type of variance. I heard Mr. Weber say that our code that calls for 2 spaces per unit was an antiquated number, but is there any other justification, any hardship on why you are requesting to be over 100 spaces short of code?
Well, you want to take it or? Let me invite Adam up here to address that particular issue.
Good evening. My name is Adam Harbin with the Hanover Company, 1780 South Post Oak Lane, Houston, Texas. The hardship is several-fold. As Den stated, in over a decade and over $1 billion worth of projects here, almost all of which have won awards in terms of resident satisfaction, design, and property management, we've never built more than 1.5 spaces per unit. We've never exceeded 1.4 spaces per unit in demand. So the hardship is several-fold in building even to a 1.7, which would be 200 spaces more than we ordinarily would. Here, we're still saying we'll build to a 1.7, which is 0.2 spaces more than we've ever built before, more than we're ever building anywhere in the entire country right now. But the hardship for doing so is several-fold. Number one, it adds a layer to the garage. That creates a 6-level garage, a tall garage. It blocks views for townhome residents, for future office residents, for hotel guests, for apartment residents. Number two, it adds about $5 million in cost. And while that might not be a hardship that can be considered in terms of a variance, it is a real hardship in the sense that that takes away money that we could put towards streetscape, towards retail TI, towards neighborhood grocery build-out, and towards other things that make this a compelling project. And number three, it's environmentally unfriendly to build an entire level of a garage that is quite literally never used. We go around and study, and the way we do it is we don't have a person that does counts. We lay cables, and we have cameras, and we study our assets around the country to determine how frequently they're used, because one of the dumbest things we can do is build things that no one uses, not for cost, but for waste. We don't believe in that. We want to be smart developers. We're not trying to save money. We're trying to do things the right way. I can assure you this is the most expensive project we have in our portfolio right now of its type. This is not a cost measure. This is an intelligence and an efficiency measure. And what we are trying to do with the way we build and the way we design is reflect the way people live now. And the way people rely on cars has changed from when this code was put in place. We also have other tools in our arsenal to address this concern if the council or the commission would ultimately consider a variance down to a 1.7. We can agree to audit this garage in a year or 2 years after stabilization. And if there is a problem, we can build more parking then in one of the other pad sites in this development, or we can agree to do things the way we're doing in Boynton Beach, Florida, which is agree to then valet the garage, which allows us to, at our cost, stack those spaces and achieve more parking than would otherwise be allowable in the garage, while also ameliorating the distance requirement because a resident comes up, hands their car off, and walks straight into the building. Something akin to you see on high-rise buildings like the Hanover Midtown project where we have valet parking as a true amenity. That's a safety valve here if this is something the council would consider. Again, I can offer that with complete confidence because I know there's no way, and I'm willing to bet the cost of this project on it, that we're not going to need more than 1.5 spaces of parking. There's absolutely no way we would spend the over $130 million this project is going to cost if we didn't think we could park it correctly. And there's also no way we could get financing for it if our equity partner or lender believed that as well. Thank you.
I'm going to add one more thing on the parking topic, if that's okay, and I'll be brief. And that goes back to this idea of shared parking. I want to clarify what we were talking about here. What we're saying is Hanover is confident that 1.7 spaces per unit is more than it needs, right? Based on our projections, we think that there will be 98 extra spaces. The only way shared parking came into the conversation is this. What we're saying is once our project is built, once it's stabilized, you, Meta, if you find an office tenant, can come study it. You do your own study like we did at Arabelle and find out what the actual parking requirement is. Again, we think it's going to be 98 extra spaces. If it is, when you build your office building in your deck, you can reach out to the city. You can petition the city to share those 98 spaces with us. We offer that because we think that will be an incentive to an office developer who all of a sudden doesn't have to build 100 spaces.
Can I make one point on that too? It's not just the 90 spaces that we believe will be completely unused if we build to a 1.7. It's the fact that, unlike you have at Avalon, which tries to share retail and office, those people are there at the same time, okay? What actually shares parking is residential and office. Our dwellers are gone during the day. That's when office parkers are there. If you look at ULI, shared parking, all of the academic literature on it, our personal and firsthand experience in Baltimore, Maryland, in Dallas, Texas, in Houston, Texas, in Atlanta, Georgia, we share parking with office quite well. One of the things we suggested as one of the catalysts to bringing office here, because that's what we're trying to do, we want that office to work too, is the ability for Rob and Meta in 5 years when we're built and stabilized and occupied and we can study the garage, for them to say, hey, there's an opportunity during the day for 200 of these spaces to be used at a very specific time from 9 to 5. That may allow an office user to build less parking than they otherwise would have to because they can share some of ours. Why does that matter? It allows that company in Baltimore, Maryland to say, gee, I can save $5 million if I go to that Windward Park site because I get to capitalize on some shared parking. We are trying to find ways to be a catalyst. That's precisely why the concurrency requirement makes less sense here than it otherwise would. It gives us a chance to prove what we've learned over 40 years and $10 billion worth of projects around the country to use as a carrot to bring an office developer here. Not a tax abatement, not a TIF, not an incentive program from the city, but a gift from us to Meta as part of our land transaction to say if we can prove that there's extra parking there, let's use it to bring an office developer in and actually realize on what you guys signed off on in 2007 and what we want to actually try to make happen. And the other difference I'll say from 2023 or 2020, whatever, they didn't have a user alongside them. They were trying to fix the zoning so they could go find someone. We are that user. We are ready to go build this project. In 2 years, we will be done. We will be able to highlight that to an office user who wants that critical mass. This is not academic. It's not a planning exercise. There's a developer, there's financing, there's a design, there's a plan.
Excuse me, could I follow a comment that you just made with a question? You had said something about in the time where eventually both the apartment and the office would exist at the same time, that your supposition was that during the day, the residents of those apartments would be gone.
Some of them will be, not all of them.
Okay, well, it's a different statement than you just made. So the concept of the mixed use is that the residents would then also, for the most part, be working in the same location, so they're not gone.
Well, that's an interesting observation, and it's something that we hope occurs. And when we study those things, what actually happens is it's not everyone. No, I don't for a second believe that every person that lives in our development will work in our development. I think that's a fallacy of the live, work, play assumption. It's a great goal, but most of the people who live in our developments work nearby, not necessarily in the exact same development.
Okay. So your assumptions do not include the likelihood that most would be gone, just some. So,
correct. We would follow ULI guidelines, which are actually even more conservative, and it assumes that people are in their home for later and they come back earlier, because what they try to avoid are those pinch points. This is a section of the development and shared parking and smart design literature that's been studied for decades, and we've put it into practice, and we've actually studied those. I mean, our office building in Houston, we park in one of our own apartment buildings, and we share it with the actual apartment dwellers there. In a project in Baltimore that I worked on in 2007, we built a 650 space parking garage, and we share 200 of the units. That's almost a third of the parking garage, and we share it from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Not because everybody leaves, because even if we assumed everybody left, somebody's going to have a sick day, somebody's going to come home for lunch, somebody's going to be in a town, somebody's going to be on vacation. You have to assume overlap. You have to assume not everybody leaves, not everybody stays, because you want to have room for error. You want to have margin for error. That absolutely would factor into our analysis.
Next question, did I hear correctly that the proposal is that about 41% will be two-bedroom and 23% will be three-bedroom?
No.
No, 3%.
3%.
Yeah, that's what made the 154.
Okay. So of the 41% that are two-bedroom, the examples that you provide are most, generally speaking, more urban locations than Alpharetta, at least currently, tends to be. We are still a very car-dependent area. So I think, having looked up some statistics myself independently, most two-bedroom apartments have at least 1.8 vehicles. There is a tendency for a couple to each maintain their own vehicles. I would suggest then that the city's code is probably consistent with what the uses would be in this area. What would you say to that?
I would say our experience is a target of one space per bedroom. So your analysis of 1.8 for two bedrooms is generally consistent with ours. A one space per bedroom ratio here, as opposed to a one space per unit ratio, leads to a lower parking ratio than the 1.7 we've suggested. The 1.7 provides an excess of one space per bedroom. And that's a function of the fact that here, unlike many of the other projects here, but very consistent with our projects around the country, has a one-bedroom ratio of almost 2/3. 65%, 62%, I think, of our overall units are one bedroom.
How much is available to accommodate guests?
That is worked into the parking ratio. That is, we meet code for guest parking, retail parking, and office parking. I can't remember that off the top of my head, but we're not asking for any variances there. It's purely for the residential portion from a 2.05 to a 1.7.
And my last question is, if hypothetically the apartments were granted without the contingency of building office at the same time, what, once those apartments are completed, holds the owner accountable for pursuing the office after the fact?
The fact that it makes 0 sense to sit on land and pay taxes and maintain it without any hope of development. I can assure you that nothing is more near and dear to Meta's heart than finding an office user. Otherwise, what is the point of them holding that land? It's not appreciating in value. It doesn't have a zoning future other than office. It is complicated by the zoning challenges we've discussed here tonight. So I think one of the only hopes to get it going is to do what the office users themselves are telling us, which is to catalyze the master plan with actual heads in beds and people on the street.
So at this point, it's a hope. It's not any kind of absolute assurance.
That's absolutely true. That's true for any office development, any type of suburban land. Office is dead, and what they are telling us to bring it back is to inject some life in the development. That's people living there, that's people shopping there, that's people working there.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add, We have KDC that did the State Farm building at Perimeter is in an arrangement with us to pursue office tenants. CBRE is leasing the property for them on their behalf, searching for tenants, and we've been actively searching, like you said, since 2007. We've had one serious office user come around the pandemic, and they dropped the site. Kathy will be familiar with Morgan Stanley's exercise, and ultimately they pulled their people, and they said, we don't want to all come back to the office. We don't want to consolidate, and they walked away. And office in this environment today is like, I would refer to it as a ship passing in the night. If you don't get on, it might be another 20 years. And so we can't say when that will come, so we can't construct an $80 million building betting on the come. It's going to be driven by a tenant user. And so that's what KDC's model is. Go find a corporate, Fortune 500 and go build them a great campus. And we think we're creating the mousetrap as we bring it along that's going to make that more attractive with the hotel, but also the multifamily. And the retail use is going to be a nice amenity for those townhomes that don't currently have a restaurant, a neighborhood grocer. So we see that as bringing the master plan along as well.
And I was just handed a note. Blake's done some quick math. The parking spaces that we provide equate to 1.26 spaces per bedroom. So if that shows you where we are per bedroom there. And just to maybe close this part of the conversation, I want to make sure everybody understands there is no commitment to the office space that it has access to this parking lot, right? This parking lot is for the office, commercial, and residential uses proposed. All we're saying is we know that even at 1.7, we're going to have a lot of spaces we don't need, and there is an opportunity in the future for that office user to come in, study it, and then make a pitch to the city of Alpharetta to use some of those spaces. And the city agrees or they don't. But we're not proposing to share space in the deck with the office right now. That is just for the Hanover site.
I do have a couple of different questions. So moving off parking, condition 5, number C, just give you a chance to bring that up. On your red lines, I understand, don't need to talk about the concurrency, but on the bottom of that page, if a building permit for the for rent building is not issued by December 1st, 2028, what was your concern with that timeline? You had mentioned that you were concerned with the timeline that was issued.
Well, number one, there's not a bank in America that's going to loan you money with a condition like that. December of 2028 is not that far away. So that is a limiting factor that, if it were...
So what date works? Because it is 3 years, and we're talking about a building permit, not the...
Yeah, I mean, we can live with that. I mean, the reality is December 28 is 2 years from now. That's a permit being issued.
That's a permit.
Yeah, we can live with that.
All right. It's back.
And it's 3. 3 years. Okay.
I would just echo the one thing. The one thing, just so you hear it from us, Den is right when it comes to the concurrency. It's a death knell. There's literally zero bank or equity partner that would invest in a project where we could get started and then, the office deal fell apart and we spend $130 million and can't open the building.
No, that's why I asked the question about the building permit.
The building permits, we'd love to get started. We're going to do everything we can to make that happen by a year ahead of that.
Okay, so my second question is a little bit above that, and understand the concurrency, but the second part of that second sentence says, and a minimum 3,000 square foot neighborhood grocery has been constructed. That would be constructed in this phase of the apartment, so that doesn't need to be stricken.
Well, what I want to make sure that we are clear on, where am I seeing this section? Oh, yeah. So we can't guarantee that we will bring someone in. What we are saying, because what we can do is, I know what we can control, right? We are agreeing to forever and ever reserve 3,000 square feet within our retail space for use by a neighborhood grocer. We are agreeing to commit to use good faith efforts to provide reports when necessary to market that space for a grocer. And we are committing to build out that space for a grocer. Now, it will be a shell space because we can't predict everything they're going to need, but we're never going to lease it for anything else. We're never going to come in 2 years later and say, that didn't work, I need to change this to a gallery, or I need to change this to a gym, or I need to recapture it as my clubhouse. That space is for a neighborhood grocer, forever and ever. We will build that space as part of this phase. It will be in our building, and if we can't lease it, it will be vinyled, marketed, coming soon, neighborhood grocer, and we're not going to want a vacant space in our building any more than the city will. And so we're going to be using our efforts to go secure that tenant. But will we build it as part of this phase? Absolutely.
Okay. And then my last and final question, because I know some of these red lines may have come in too late, but one of them was involving the parking decks 5C, and that the facade or whatever, comparable materials is, I think, the word I'm talking about. So this was fantastic. It was very helpful to get that today. So I think I just want to clarify. So the parking decks facade would more mimic.
That's I think what we wanted to clarify. So that is the rendering of the facade. We studied every garage that's exposed in Alpharetta, and we tried to mimic what that architectural read is. But that entire facade on all sides is clad with brick, which is what the building is clad with. But
Okay, I couldn't tell.
Yeah, what we wanted to clarify, and I think that's maybe not completely clear in the markup of the conditions, is it's not going to look like a building. Like, we're not going to put in fake windows and things like that, which then just aren't lit and it looks like a vacant building. It will be what the garage across the street where I parked in, which is a really nice looking garage that's clad with brick, and it'll be the same color brick, the same kind of brick, all that stuff.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that because it struck me as, that was it. Thank you.
Any other questions? I hear no other questions at this time. I'm going to open the meeting for public comments. Anyone in favor of this application, please come forward. I see one in the back. Hello, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, sir. Kelly Martin. I live at 986 Catamaran Court. This is my neighborhood that you're talking about. It's not sad, but we could use a little more vibrancy. So I'm going to speak in favor. I helped our neighborhood organize a meeting where these gentlemen came and presented and answered questions. So we had maybe 20 or so people who showed up for that meeting. Were there that many? So they went through this similar presentation, and they answered questions, and we heard concerns and all of that. I'm also a local realtor, so I sell a lot of these townhomes. I actually put a for sale sign up on mine today, if anyone has anyone, because I purchased 1099 Hayward Way in Alpharetta, so I live in another townhome in Harlow. I think what our neighborhood liked about what these gentlemen were presenting is the fact that we need some life in the development. When people in our neighborhood purchased their properties from Lennar between 2018 and 2022, part of that conversation was, and we're going to have this next door that's going to have all of this, and everyone kind of bought into that and thought that was going to be great, and nothing has happened. So I've lived in that neighborhood since 2020. I was a renter for 2 years, rented one of the townhomes, and then I purchased one. So we've all been waiting. I've been a part of a lot of these meetings that have happened since then. I would say the most important thing is that these are high-end apartments, that they are small and cost a lot. So that keeps up the values of the community and quality. So if you compare it to rental properties that are in downtown Alpharetta, apartments that are at Avalon, the apartments that are at Lakeview, all of these that are being approved, like these gentlemen are saying, they're all concurrent. You have for sale townhomes, you have for rent, you have other amenities. So I think it's consistent with what we are seeing in the area. I think it's important that the traffic flow is addressed. My understanding is there have been 2 traffic lights approved already at North Point and Dryden, and at North Point and Lighthouse Lane. Being someone who goes in and out of that property every day, there's going to be, it's already difficult to make a left turn onto North Point. So if we want to be able to do that when adding additional residents, then I think that's really important for that to happen. I think the school factor you guys brought up today was something that was a concern that was expressed at the meeting, and I think listening to the responses of this group, they are saying that their typical client is not going to have students impacting the school load. So, I mean, I haven't done the studies, but if they've done, and you guys would know more about that, whether that's going to happen. I think what we see in those townhomes that I live in, it's actually 187 townhomes built by Lennar, is it's a ton of families, an additional family, and all of that. So I think people will push the limits as far as having kids in smaller spaces, since it's Alpharetta High School and Webb Bridge and New Prospect, and we already just got redistricted. We were Creekview, and we got redistricted to New Prospect. So our neighborhood concern is that we're not adding a ton of families and young kids that are going to affect. But what the gentlemen were saying is that these schools had capacity for more. So I definitely think that should be addressed, safety issues, traffic. But I think the overall point is we've all been waiting. Everyone in there has been waiting since 2018. And we're ready for something to happen in that area that brings more life to it. So that was another point. If they're adding amenities like a grocery, if there's any opportunity to add anything else that gives us a little coffee shop or lunch spot or something, I think that would do really well. The other point being, when you guys are talking about the 100 townhomes Empire is building called Argosy, they've only signed up to build 50. So that whole other area is empty. So maybe there's an opportunity for something more interesting there than more townhomes. I don't know. I know that's been approved, but like I said, all I know is they're selling the 50. Right? So,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm in favor because we need something there. We need something high end. We need something that keeps our property values up, and we'd like to see something happen.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else in favor? Hearing none, anyone in opposition to this application? Hi, Tom.
Hi, everybody. I'm Tom Miller. I live at 4025 Walnut Creek Trail in Windward. They just give me so much material here. I don't know where to start. I think it's telling that what you heard from was, I believe he's with the apartment developer. I mean, this is almost like a McDonald's out parcel, and that's the whole problem. Let me just go through my comments. When that gentleman was talking about, marketing it for 20 years and all that, he didn't market it for 20 years. He's just the apartment developer trying to put 300 apartments on a small piece of property because that's the offer that Rob Kitchlow has. Rob's been since the beginning, but the project hasn't ever gotten off the ground. So they basically have nothing going on. And the reason they're coming back is because they've sold another out parcel. The whole thing is out parcels. There is no mixed-use vision. There's no plan. You didn't hear the master developer come up and even make a presentation. He came up to answer a couple questions, but there's no vision for this property. And the drawing is so misleading. I mean, Kathy, I forget, I was up for a short time. This residential dominates the site. And as Kathy, or Community Development put in their staff analysis, if this is approved, 70% of the site will be residential. And if you look at, this was supposed to be 48 acres of mixed use. I was here in 2008. I spoke against it 4 times. And I was here in 2015 to support the townhomes that woman lives in. I was here to support that because it was an improvement. It seemed to be a plan, but it wasn't a plan. It was actually just that they had sold maybe half the property to townhome developer. Then they sold another property to another townhome developer. Unfortunately, it was a step down. So the project keeps stepping down, and this is a prime site for a corporate headquarters, but there's no vision on the part of the master developer. They really are lost. And it feels a lot like before Avalon. If you remember, there was another developer, and he kept coming back for years with an idea, and they'd give him a rezoning, and it would still not happen. So, but let me talk about more specifics, because you can't turn it down based on lack of vision. So let's get to the real issues. I do support, I recommend denial for it, as staff has. Basically, as I said, it's all townhomes and apartments. There's no retail or office. There's one hotel. As I said, it would bring it to 70%. The fact that Hanover made the presentation, when I went to the CZIM, it was pretty clear that the whole thought process was, oh, I got somebody who could buy this parcel, and that's why it's here. That's why Hanover's here, because it's almost a scattering of out parcels. There's no mixed-use cohesion. This is a prime site for corporate headquarters. It was originally planned for Prudential with 4 towers and parking garages, but they changed their plans, and so it was sold to the current owner in 2007, I believe. And so, the Windward Master Plan depends on everything working together. It all works together, and we need this. I mean, what it's developed into, I hate to think what it's going to be like in 30 years with all these townhomes and apartments and all this residential. It doesn't make any sense. There's no jobs here. It's certainly not a place I would put apartments. As I said, there's no vision for this. The other thing is the residential density wasn't mentioned, but the residential density exceeds the maximum the city allows. If you look at R10M, on 48 acres, you would have 480 housing units. And if you look at the mixed-use residential zoning, which this isn't, it's CUP, but in 2007 and 8, it was styled to be mixed use, which became later with Avalon. But the whole, residential component, now they want 600 residential units on this property when it's 48 acres. At the most, the highest density that Alpharetta has would be 10, which would be 480, and it was 415 residential units in all the other zonings. So now they're kind of running out of wiggle room here to get more and more residential, because that's all it's turning out to be, except for the hotel. The other thing is, if you look at the MU zoning, which this is modeled after, because it is only 48 acres, Avalon, I think, is 86. And so this was sold as they sold it to the residents. And I remember in 2015, Rob Kitchlow mentioned that this was a mini Avalon. That's what it was intended to be, a mini Avalon in 2015. Well, that didn't turn out to be. So if you look at MU zoning, it requires at least 25% to be office and 10% to be commercial. So that's 35%. This is going to be 70% that is just residential. So it's out of proportion. And if you look at the layout, it's all the residential is south of this site. It's really an abomination for what you would call mixed use, where you expect a walkable community. It's really not. This is one of the crown jewels of Alpharetta in terms of recruiting a corporate headquarters or regional headquarters. It's a shame that the owner doesn't seem to be able to market it well. I hope, let me just mention a couple other things. Other mixed use has succeeded. He tried to blame the city. The apartment developer tried to blame the city for the project not getting off the ground. But look at Continuum. Look at Avalon. Look at downtown. Look at Thompson Street. Look at Georgia 400 Center at Haynesbridge. They've all attracted office. They've attracted, a good mixed-use plan because they had a mixed-use plan. They weren't just selling out parcels. So, others have been successful. I'm kind of insulted that he blames the city for their own lack of success. So what I would say is I hope you recommend denial of the application. It's completely inappropriate, and I think it's too dense. And the parking garage is all about the money. And if you've ever been in a parking garage that doesn't have space, you know what that's like. I don't think they know what they're doing. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the applicant. You have some time for rebuttal.
I'll be brief, and I'm going to take some of those points in no particular order. No one's blaming the city for anything. The only point that we were trying to make is this. Every single time Meta has come before this board in 07, 15, and 23, it's asked for rental, right? And every single time the city said no, while allowing all of these other mixed-use developments to have it. That's the reason why some of these areas he just referred to have prospered, because they are centralized by a great mixed-use development. We need that piece for this site here. That's what the market's telling us. Number two, we talked about residential exceeding the max. That is wrong. Residential density for this property is calculated on the entire acreage of Pod 66. It's actually referenced in the staff report, but we are not over the maximum density. He talked several times in different ways about this being a prime site for corporate relocation. It's a crown jewel. That is easy to say, but Rob Kinchelow has 18 years of experience to prove him wrong. We do think it would be a great opportunity. Again, we've got a MARTA park and ride, we've got a hotel, we've got access to the highway. There are a lot of good things going for it, but corporations don't want to come here, right? There is no reason why they would wait 18 years, and let nothing happen, right? I mean, I guess the question for you guys, how much longer are you going to make these guys wait? Seriously, look at that property. You've been out there. I'm sorry if I said it was sad. That's not what I meant. Is it's underutilized, it's lonely, and it's been that way for a long time. We've got to get this off the snide. We've got to get this development concluded, and that's all we're trying to do. Lastly, he mentioned several times, there is no vision. There is a vision. There's a site plan. It's not just all townhomes. It's not just all multifamily. It still includes office. It still includes commercial. We're just trying to bring that piece here. I think what Meta spent a significant amount of time on originally was focusing on that corporate relocation at its crown jewel. It didn't work, so now they've fallen back to plan B to figure out, all right, what else can we do to entice office? And they think this multifamily with one of the best multifamily developers in America is the answer.
Thank you. I think we have covered it. Before I turn this over to the board, Ms. Cook, I would like clarification on the hearing procedures. We deviated from the hearing procedures today, and I think Mr. Weber mentioned that I have 3 applications. I don't believe that was the intent of the hearing procedure. So I'd like clarification from the city attorney regarding, because I don't want to set precedent where these are considered as 3. I believe it was 1 application. But
Yeah, it's my understanding that it's 1 application, but we'll get clarification prior to the city council.
But for purposes of, because of the interest on the project, I did allow the applicant to exceed that time. So. All right, with that said, I'll turn this over to the board for discussion and our motion.
Mr. Chairman, I did have one question. Kathy, on the parking in the code, how long has the 2-point and change parking part been in the code? Like a year, 10 years, 20 years?
It's probably been 15 years. Yeah, it's probably been 15 years for that code section, and we haven't given any variances to that, so it has been in place for a while.
And Kathy, following on that question, even with a one-bedroom apartment, if you assume 2 people, which is probably true at least half of the time, do we have any studies that indicate that, in fact, generally speaking, 2 people will, as often as not, have 2 vehicles?
We do, and I think somebody mentioned that the other comparisons were in more urban areas.
Yes.
What we have found is that even with our downtown, single-family for sale, people have more cars. We started out where we were going by a code like Brookhaven and Midtown, and then we realized that we do need to have 18-foot driveways, so we had to come back and change our code because people had more cars and visitors because they are still driving. Even though they're living in the downtown, it's still a suburban city. So we are seeing more cars per home. And it hasn't worked looking at the same code that's in Brookhaven or other cities.
So you're saying the current code is well-supported, and you see
Yes.
no compelling reason to start granting variances or to consider changing the code?
I do not.
Thank you.
And Kathy, I just wanted to clarify, because I do believe it was mentioned, the traffic lights on North Point there, that is already in play, right? We're already putting those in, or is that?
No, I don't know that it warranted yet. I mean, you could condition it that it has to be installed as part of the condition
there
of
was a
CO,
road-
but I don't know, George, if you want to comment on that.
And can I follow up on that as well while you're answering? As I understand, there will have to be a light at Tradewinds Parkway as part of the construction of the on-ramp to the express lanes in Georgia 400 soon, correct?
I do not know the answer to that question, but I can dig into that and follow up. At this point in time, I don't have a solid answer for that. However, I do know that 400 project is greenlit for after 2030.
Okay. That might be something you want to clarify for City Council.
Sure.
Just because I know that they were also
No.
talking about extending the road to Edison.
Right.
So there had to be a traffic light there. So I didn't know where that was, and, because that would affect getting out of that property.
Yeah, so
100%.
To expand and answer your question regarding the North Point Parkway intersections, those are currently identified and baked into existing condition of approval 17, which relates to the original 2015 action summary. They're specified in those 2015 conditions when warranted.
And also, just to correct something, I think Dan, their attorney, had mentioned that there hasn't been a condo project in 15 years.
I said I haven't.
Oh, okay. Because we do have one pending that you'll see next month.
And we've had some go in Alpharetta in the last.
Yeah, okay. Apologies.
Okay.
Are we in discussion?
It's on the floor for the board.
We're in discussion?
Yes.
So just a comment, and I think this is for my fellow board members and for the applicant and for the public. I want to make it clear that for a mixed-use development of this magnitude on 47 acres, the conditions and the requirements that we're asking for, whether it's concurrency with regard to office, neighborhood grocery, parking, or some of the others, I know the applicant is having a lot of challenges and issues with those, but that's essentially boilerplate language for all the mixed-use developments, either completed or underway, and we don't get pushback at all. I've been here 4 years, I've never heard an applicant say, we'll build a shell building for a grocery, and if it gets filled, it gets filled. And kind of a hands-off. And I kind of agree with the comment from Mr. Miller that it doesn't feel like a comprehensive vision and plan and execution strategy. It feels kind of piecemeal, like we'll build the shell, but, you know, I'm not going to mention, but the Brookside development recently, they shared with us, we've got these People already lined up tentatively for retail, for restaurant, there's office components, and it gave us comfort and confidence that we weren't going to have a bunch of empty buildings there, that they were all in to make it happen as a whole. The parking, 100 spaces short of code. Once again, we get into discussions about parking, but when it comes to for-rent parking, I have a hard time with 100 spaces short of code. You know, and just overall, I do believe Mr. Weber, the applicant, when he, or somebody mentioned the fallacy of live, work, play. Well, you know, that fallacy is in action right here in City Center. It's in action in Avalon. It's probably going to be in action. It's going to be in action in Continuum and Brookside. Brookside's taking a heavy office environment and converting that to mixed use with retail, restaurant, and while keeping the office. So I believe in that concept, and I believe in what our planners and our staff and our elected officials have done to promote that. And I feel like this proposal, with increasing residential density and reducing commercial and office density, if you even believe office is going to come, because it's not committed to, it's just a block on a site plan picture. There's no commitment to dates. Even if you believe that's going to happen, I feel like we're moving from a balanced view of uses consistent with live, work, play to a very unbalanced mix. So that's why I'm not going to be able to be in support of this project. And in fact, I shouldn't even say project. I should say latest request for modification of the plan.
To dovetail on what you just said, and this is unrelated to this application, you and the applicant is correct that mixed-use developments are not operating the way they are intended to in terms of live, work, or live, work, and play. It's something that's still unfolding and has not been perfected yet in terms of the ratio of users and how do you actually keep the residents working in the same place. It doesn't seem to be working anywhere, but this is a new concept and new means within the last 10 to 15 years, because we used to be in the big box malls, now we are mixed use, and the reason was to reduce travel and have people stay predominantly in the same place. Now, it seems like just any other development where people can live and go somewhere else and work there, and it's not necessarily a mixed use. Mixed use in terms of their variety of uses there, but it's not a live work as defined. That was a side comment that we would need to look at. In addition to that, we have seen significant development in Alpharetta over the last 15 years, I'd say even more 10 years, and Mr. Weber mentioned that, and I particularly don't like what I'm seeing in terms of the heavy density. Even the appearance, the sizes of buildings seems to be getting smaller, the density keeps to be increasing, and I'm wondering whether this is sustainable, and this is for our community development department, because you are the watchdogs to make sure that we are not growing so fast and get to a point where it's not sustainable and it's unmanageable. It's really overwhelmed our public safety, our transportation systems, and other infrastructure, our schools. At what point? And I know we go through master planning process and comprehensive land use master plan, but it seems like development is overtaking our ability to be able to manage it properly. And unfortunately, uncontrolled development has always been the biggest problem anywhere I've traveled or lived in the world. And that's part of what we do consider when we look at these applications. We understand and appreciate that developers, especially when you have a piece of land, you don't want to be sitting there forever. And all of you are very eloquent and in your presentations, and you have to be applauded for that. But we also look on the side of the city and the residents and what the intent is for us moving forward. And it pains us to say no in some cases where there is reason to do that because we know, sometimes we have an opportunity cost. We do this, you lose that. Enough said. Any other questions? Well, sorry, we're in discussions.
We're still in discussion.
Yes,
Well, I
and
appreciate
or
your
motion.
comments, Chairman, and I do appreciate Commissioner Stratton's comments as well. And I do think there's a vision on this, but the vision is just to build 313 or 315 Reynolds with not really any commitment to go anywhere else. And they talked about being the best of class, making sure that the product meets their standards. But what they need to understand is it also needs to meet Alpharetta's standards. And this falls short of that a lot. And while I agree that we need a catalyst, I agree, we definitely need a catalyst, but we need a vision and a commitment, and that's why we have concurrency. We take pride in many of our mixed-use developments. They've been very successful, but it's because there's been a vision on both sides, both with the city and both with the development. So there's a lot of concerns here, and to which I'm not in favor of tonight.
I'm going to make a motion to deny MP-25-08/CU-25-13/V-25-17 Hanover Windward Park, Windward Master Plan Pod 66.
Second. Who seconded? Todd. All right. A motion has been made and properly seconded. Any further discussion? Before we vote, I want to comment on you, the developer. The products you put together, the renderings you showed, they are fantastic. You do a good job. We are talking about this particular location, but you do very good work. And whatever the vote is, it goes before council on November the 17th. They'll make the final decision, and we just make recommendations here. And but the council, they are the elected officials. We serve at their pleasure. We recommend. They don't have to go with what we say. All in favor, please raise your right hand.
Yes, but
The motion is to recommend denial. Motion is unanimous. As I said, it goes before council on November 17th, 2025. Anything else the board wants to consider tonight? Hearing none.
November
17th. Oh, this is, my sheet says November 17th. So it's December when? December 1st.
I think that agenda's full.
Oh, it's important to clarify this for the public and for those who will be. December 1st, 2025. What about the other applications? Were they also December 1st? So this one is December 1st. Okay. All right. Usually I have two sheets that tells me which goes when. I didn't. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. It's now 9:43. I did already.